All right. Well, happy Friday, my friends. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Extreme Health Radio. Super pumped you guys are here today. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're talking to Jason Prall, and we're going to be talking about human longevity and what's possible for us. And, he's working with people. He recently did a documentary series all about longevity called the Human Longevity Project, and we'll be talking to him about that. Is it possible, do you think, for us to live till we're 100, 150 years old? Is that possible, and would you want to? Or would you only want to if you had a strong, healthy body? So these are all questions we'll explore a little bit in today's episode. This is going to be a lot of fun because we are typically focused in the Western world all about disease process, what's going on with people and why they're so sick and all of these things that seem to be draining us. So I want to see and focus on the positive side and what's possible for human beings. And so let me bring up our show page here. We got so much going on Extreme Health Radio. So thanks, guys, for joining us. We broadcast live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This week has been a little bit nuts. We've been doing a show every single day. So 5 shows this week. But today, obviously, Jason Prall, you're listening and watching this particular show. And then on Monday, we're going to be talking with Nadia Pedaguana. We're going to be talking with her about intermittent fasting. And I'm sure we'll talk with Jason about that. And I'm sure that that does play a role in human longevity. Then next Wednesday, we'll talk to Darren Engels about Lyme disease. I just read an article today that the singer Avril Lavigne has really bad Lyme disease, and she's on antibiotics and all these things. And gosh, you just feel like telling people there are natural solutions for these things. So we'll be talking with Dr. Darren Engels next Wednesday at 10:45. And then next Friday, we'll be talking to Dr. William Pollack. And we'll be talking to him about pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. So if you guys want to see what's coming up on our show, you can just go to extremehealthradio.com and you can find out who all the upcoming guests are and what time we broadcast and where we broadcast. We're broadcasting to a lot of different places. So for those that are watching on Dr. John Bergman's channel, wondering who the heck we are, who I am, who Jason Prall is, and why aren't we Dr. Bergman, then the reason why we're broadcasting there is that we're actually working with Dr. Bergman on the Extreme Health Academy. And so if you guys want to learn more about that, you can go to extremehealthacademy.com, and that's where we take all of the concepts and theories that we talk about on Extreme Health Radio and Dr. Bergman talks about on his channel, and we dive much, much deeper and bring practical tips to you guys, really cutting-edge tips. And so that's why we're broadcasting to Dr. Bergman's channel. So thanks, guys, for joining us there. Today we have Jason Prall, and like I said in the intro, his main work has been in human longevity, and he's an optimal health practitioner, works with people around the world, and at some point got fed up with people's diseases and wanted to see how we could focus on on longevity. So thanks, Jason, for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's so great to have you on. Was I correct about that? At some point, you just got sort of fed up with people's diseases and wanted to focus on more of the positive aspects of people's lives?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really necessarily fed up. It was more of, I felt like I could make a bigger impact on the health side of the equation, right?
Uh-huh.
So most of the people that I was working with they needed some education on how to live in a healthy way. So, I just kind of found myself telling the same old story over and over again to the point where, I thought I could make a bigger impact there because a lot of the people in the integrated functional world are still focused on disease care and going about diseases in a more functional or integrative or holistic way. And that's great. But what I found was missing a lot of the time was the health aspect of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. And we were just talking on one of our recent shows about like the supposed curse in the Bible, like in the book of Genesis, how it talks about there was Methuselah who was living to 969 years old, and then they sinned against God. And then one of the curses that God had was man's life will be cut short to 120 years. And I'm thinking, dude, like we're 40 years off of that. What's gone wrong with that?
We're not close in the West. There's some interesting ironies, though. We are finding that over the past 50, 60, 70 years, the lifespan has increased, and to some degree, We might even argue that the health span has increased. In other words, we are staying healthy longer. But I think in the last decade or so, we really started to see that trend reverse to the point where while we're still living a fairly long time, I guess you could say on average, we're trading this sort of early death for more chronic disease.
Hmm.
And so I think we have to argue and we have to think about this and ask ourselves, what is it that's causing this chronic disease, and do we need to make this trade, or can we have health into our old age? And I think this is why it's valuable to go look at other societies around the world, other cultures, and where this is common, where people are living into their 80s, 90s, and 100s in a fairly healthy way, and understand what's going on, why that might be the case, and if it's something we can apply to our modern world. Because I think this is a key factor that even people in the longevity space don't like to recognize, especially if they're looking at epidemiological studies and they're studying populations. They're not taking into account the historical aspects here. In
Hmm.
most of these places where we find people living a long time, they didn't have electricity 50 years ago. So this is you have to understand the implications of not having electricity. This means no transportation of food. This means no refrigeration. This means no freezing foods. So and no artificial lighting in the ways that we see today. So we have to really really sort of take ourselves back in time and understand their lifestyles and how that might implicate either health or challenges in the realm of health.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people that listen to this, and I've talked to people over the years that say, I would rather die at 70 years old and not be sick for 10 years, at the final 10 years of my life. Because like you were saying in that interview that I tagged you on Instagram with Tom Bilyeu up in LA, was that, we don't really have any examples of people that are like 95, 98 years old, that are still tilling their gardens, still doing work. And one of the, and so the question is like, if all of these modern things are affecting our health so much, like Dr. Jack Kruse talks about light and electricity and voltage, and you're talking about those same things, the question we have to ask ourselves, it seems to me, is, if we want to go back to this sort of rural agrarian society where we're sort of disconnected from modern world, do we want to live like that? Is it is it a viable trade-off for people? A lot of people might say no.
Exactly, and I would argue that that's probably the case for most of us. If you
Mm-hmm.
if you looked at your life and said, okay, well, what would it look like if I got rid of electricity? Most people have no idea how to live in another way, and nor do they want to. So that said, I would also I think it's important to go beyond the physical ramifications of our modern world, right? So we look at the modern world and you have people talking about electromagnetic fields and Wi-Fi and cell towers and artificial lighting and all these things. And you can get really geeky really quick and talk about biophysics and what it's doing to the cell and
Right.
all these things. And that's great. But at the end of the day, even without this stuff, we have to look at our society as a whole and our values. We are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to make ends meet, thinking that we have to move fast, move hard, and we're in this mad rush. And I think we have to ask ourselves, why are we rushing? What is it that's driving us to operate in the way that we do? Um, you know, just I'll give you a very real world example, right? I live in Carlsbad, California. It's a beach town. It's fairly quiet, fairly slow, still a sort of modern city, of course, but it's not laid out in a way that is conducive to me walking a lot of places. So even myself, who understands the value of walking and moving as opposed to driving, I'll find myself driving to the store or the post office or the bank that's maybe a mile and a half or 2 miles away because maybe I'm doing a couple trips and it's faster. And in our society, time is money, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
I can do this, if I can run these errands in a short amount of time, then I can come back and I can get my work done. I can get more emails. I can do podcasts like this. I can do all these things. So that's valuable to me. But at the same time, I could just as easily go walk to all these places, right? I mean, if I understand what health is and where it comes from and the value of getting outside and slowing down and all these things, and yet I don't. And then when I just spent a month in Tallinn, Estonia, which is an old town, an old city in Europe that is sort of very conducive to walking in sort of the old town areas. And when I was there for about 3.5 weeks, I walked almost everywhere. I didn't take a car, but maybe two times in an
Wow.
entire month. And it's not that I learned anything new. It's not that there's no difference, except for I was in a place that was conducive to me changing my behavior in a way that I knew was healthy.
Hmm.
So, it goes beyond the knowledge. It goes beyond the physical surroundings. Tallinn, Estonia is actually one of the most tech savvy places in Europe. I mean, it's like an entrepreneurial capital of Europe. It's very, very, modern in that sense. So it's not a matter of necessarily technology and the modernization of a city. It's a matter of how is our lifestyle designed and how is our environment conducive to us operating in a healthy way.
Hmm.
Do we have access to farmers markets? Do we have spaces for gardening? Do we have the parks, are people laying down fertilizers or are they not, right? These are decisions that go beyond our sort of modern individual preferences. These are environmental factors that are pushing us to behave in a certain way, sometimes without us even knowing it. So sometimes it's just a matter of raising our awareness to the point of recognition that I have to sort of make a different choice to work around my environment that may or may not be that beneficial to my behavior.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good point. It's interesting as you're talking, I was thinking about, we're up here in San Juan Capistrano, which is only about a half hour north of where you are, and it's very similar. It's not right on the beach, but it's basically a beach town. We're not far from the beach, and the studio I'm in now is about 2 miles away from my house, so it takes just a couple minutes to get here. But it's funny because when you're talking about lifestyle like that, I've done a lot of traveling around the world and, been in places where the majority of the people do walk, and you see extreme, amounts of health with people that do that. But I'm thinking to myself here, like, if I were to walk from my house to the studio here, that may take a certain amount of time. But then I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm going to be exposed to unknown amounts of chemicals from cars driving by, right? But then if I drive in my car, I'm being exposed to EMF from the motor in the car and all that stuff. And then I'm thinking, there's obviously a plus and a minus with every decision that we make, And so I guess in today's modern world, like in the modern or in a world that you're describing, it would be amazing if we lived in complete compliance with nature and I didn't have to deal with car exhaust walking to a studio like this. But
Absolutely.
now I have to trade off. Do I want the EMF from the car or do I want the car exhaust driving down the road? It's a crazy,
Right. Well, and take it another step further. That's the external environment. What about the internal environment? What
Mm-hmm.
about what's going on in your head, in your mind, in your heart?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where almost all the people in, not all, it's too often forgotten that is probably the biggest driving factor to your health is the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way that you emote, the way that you speak. And if I operate in the sense of, oh my God, this world is so dangerous. We've got chemicals, we've got EMFs, and we've got all these things around me that's there to kill me. You're operating in a permanent state of fear,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, worry, and this, I would argue, is more detrimental to your health than all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this flips over your nervous system into a state of, stress, and digestion is not as good, repair, regeneration, sleep, all these things that we want that contribute to health and longevity are diminished because you're operating in a state that's fearful, that's full of anxiety. And so, I think we have to look at all of this stuff. And at the end of the day, there are certain things in our environment that we can shift and change. And there are certain things that are sort of externalities that are out of our control, so to speak, or at least far enough out of our control that we can't ultimately change. But what you have complete control over is your emotional state, is the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way that you act. So you see this with a lot of people in the health field that they still haven't mastered that, let alone uh, are even working on it. They're trying to fix the outside world and they're not working on the inside world. And what you notice when you go to places like, these villages in Costa Rica or in the mountains of Sardinia or in Icaria, Greece, you see people that are at peace. They have a peace of mind. They have peace in their heart. In Icaria, when we were there, which is an island in Greece, it's said that they have the patience to outlast a mule. They will literally sit there and just wait for things to happen 5, 10 minutes, and if it's okay, like they don't stress
Wow.
out.
That's awesome.
So, we're looking for the secrets and keys to longevity on the external world, but I would argue that we should probably be mastering our internal world first. And
Hmm.
in doing so, we can then affect our external world just as much, if not more. And, we're shifting that internal environment that is more favorable to health and longevity.
Hmm. Yeah, I want to ask you about that. I'm curious about your thoughts about, if you were to sort of rank all of these different factors, you have the environmental factor like the EMF or whatever, toxins in your home. Then you have the sort of internal, external environment, which is like the external food that you eat that you put internally. But then you have the positive mindset, spiritual growth, connectedness, purpose, meaning, all these things. I'm curious, like, how you would rank each one of those, because a lot of people that listen to our show, they'll write in and they'll be like, "Oh, this food's going to kill me," or "This EMF's going to kill me." And part of my desire in this show is to allow people to wake up spiritually, and to bring in that aspect of spirituality, connectedness, personal development. Because if you listen to a lot of our shows, man, you'll be freaked out about everything that's going to kill you. And so it's important that we develop that inner strength and, all the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think we have to recognize where our values are. Do we simply want to live a long time, in the sense of the greatest number of years, or do we want happiness and joy and peace and all these things? Happiness, joy, and peace, that's sort of a decision. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you decide. And so I think practicing various methodologies, and just getting into these practices will allow you to get to that state a little bit easier. And so I think focusing your efforts there on being happy, on being grateful, these type of things, compassionate. It's those qualities that have been spoken about in spiritual traditions and religious traditions for thousands of years that I think are really the biggest bang for our buck, because it's going to change the way you feel in your life, and it will also contribute to your longevity. So, that's really where I think we should start. And if you look at, again, I think the biggest problems that we face in the Western world are probably related to emotional traumas that are affecting our subconscious behavioral patterns and ultimately dictating our sort of personalities, the people we think we are. You see this a lot with very successful people. They think they're that person. And oftentimes I work with these clients that they are that way because of something that happened in their childhood that maybe they didn't get enough love, and they had to go do things and accomplish things to get the love or the admiration, or they become meek and meager. They're afraid of success. So there's all these personality traits that come from these traumas. And I would argue that it is probably what happens preconception up until the age of maybe 20 years old that is probably the most important time period that dictates your longevity. So to some degree, I think we have to just let go of this idea that the length of our life is in our control. I think that's ridiculous. In fact, you can do everything right, walk outside and get hit by a bus.
Yeah,
So
totally.
focusing on the length of our life is kind of stupid. I think that if you are able to enjoy your life, I think that's probably the most important factor that I think everybody can agree on. And so it's almost like, how many days can we enjoy before we kick the bucket?
Yeah.
How many moments can I be in and recognize before I depart? And I think that is probably a more noble effort. And you see this in people that maybe leave a little early. People that are 15 or 18 or 20. We look at them and say, "Oh my gosh, this is tragic." But at the end of the day, if they lived a full life, if they lived a big life, if they loved their life, I mean, that's probably more than I think many people can say when they kick the bucket at 18, at 80 or 90.
Hmm.
That are looking back on their life with regret, with these emotions like they didn't like what they did. They wish they had done something else. They wish they had loved more. They wish that they had more connections. You find the same things when you hear these stories of people on their deathbed, reviewing their life, and it always comes back to the same stuff. So, I think we have to just look at that for what it is, and learn from these people that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and the people that are about to die that can share these wisdoms with us about what their life was and maybe what their life wasn't that they wanted it to be, and try to embody that as much as we can, and follow a path that's true to us. The
Hmm.
more we can be in alignment with who we are, enjoy life, and recognize that, we're probably all going to go. I don't subscribe to this idea that we can live forever, nor do I think that we really want to, ultimately. So I think it's really about the joy, the compassion, the empathy, the, it's sort of the meaning, if you will, of
Hmm.
of each day that I think is the most impactful, both again for longevity and for the real reason we're here.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you have all those insights because a lot of people are focusing on longevity, from substances they consume or whatever else. After having done the Human Longevity Project, which if you guys want to check it out, I think the website is humanlongevityfilm.com. Is that right?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how many countries did you go to, and how many different people did you speak with? Because coming back with this insight is pretty interesting to me that you would focus on internal strength and happiness and connectedness and all that.
Yeah, we ended up going to, I think, 7 or 8 countries. We really focused our efforts on where we could find these people that were 80, 90, and beyond,
Uh-huh.
which, certain areas of Costa Rica, there was, parts of Sardinia in the mountains. Okinawa is very well known for having a lot of people in their later years,
Wow.
and then Ikaria, Greece, and
Uh-huh.
and and been some work done in these places, which I don't really think that it's the area that's that beneficial. To be honest, I don't think there's anything special about these geographic locations other than they're sort of islands which preserved cultural traditions
Okay.
and sort of preserved genomic, let's say, specialization for the area.
Okay.
So I think there are some aspects there, but I think it comes down to what humans do. And so I think these were just places where people really stuck to a culture that was conducive to living in a healthy way.
Hmm.
And so we talked to a lot of people. I mean, we had probably 20 to 25 interviews that we captured, but we
Wow.
spoke with a lot of other people as well. And you saw the same things. You saw, you heard the same stories over and
Hmm.
over again. And then when you looked around and you got a sense for how they lived 60, 70, 80 years ago, you started to understand why they were healthy. And you know, I asked just about everybody the same question, as I was sort of done with the interview. And I said, something to the effect of, if you could give me, one tip, to live a long, healthy, happy life, what would it be?
Okay.
And almost every person had some version of, maintain good relationships with those around you, hold no grudges, this type of thing. So if you're being told that over and over again by these people that are 80, 90, 100 plus from all around the world, you're kind of an idiot if you don't at least take that into consideration, that that's probably pretty important. And then it gets corroborated with, again, the spiritual traditions. And you hear this over and in philosophers, and I mean, it's been out there. It's not sexy.
Hmm.
You can't bottle it up and sell it.
Hmm.
It's not a program that you can sell necessarily. So it doesn't really get promoted here in the West. It's not something that our medical system is going to really push you to do. And it's, at the end of the day, it's I would say it's hard work, but it's work. It's something
Hmm.
you've got to do for yourself. You've got to reflect on your life and figure out who you are and what you're doing and take responsibility. And if you look at the culture in the West, we've basically fostered the opposite. We're blaming everybody else. We want the quick fix. Even in the alternative, natural, holistic world, we're still looking for supplements in a bottle that we can take really quick and solve all our problems. And so it's not sexy. It's not a sexy message to say you got to do the internal work if you want to be healthy, happy, and live a long life. Instead, we're now turning towards technology. Give me the red light, give me the cold, give me the, whatever it is that we can apply to ourselves that doesn't involve me doing any real work. And that's what we want. And so, unfortunately, I think that's going to fail. I think there's devices out there that we can use. We can have fun with some of this stuff. There's very good research on, lasers and infrared lighting and red light and hot therapy and cold therapy and, all these things, and stem cell therapy. This is great, fantastic. We can use this to reduce our suffering, reduce our pain, increase our mobility and our health to some degree. But at the end of the day, I would still argue that if you're using all those things and you hate yourself, or you're angry about anything, then I think there's still something to be gained by working on yourself, because who cares if you're, living to 150 and you're poisoning the planet and you don't like yourself and you're causing problems all around you. I don't know that that's a really, you know, valuable thing for you to be on this planet for 150 years.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that there's a lack of connection, I think, that's going on, and a lack of meaning, like you were talking about on Tom Bilyeu's show, and it's weird because in this modern culture, we get so disconnected from who we are, what our sort of mission in this world is, and connected to our passions, connected to our other people, connected to the earth, connected to the environment, to the food we eat, to other people, and then from a spiritual perspective, I mean, a lot of us think that we're not connected to our ancestors, and
Yeah.
our future children who are passing on DNA to them, and in a lot of the like recall healing, for example, they look 3 generations in the past and 3 generations in the future for spiritual and physical and emotional traumas that carry themselves, into our physiology in some weird way, and so like. We think if one of us comes down with a disease, like we have this disease, instead of looking at it as like our whole family has this, or if we're experiencing something amazing, we all get to experience it together. And I don't know what it is. Something weird in our culture makes us think maybe it's the Ayn Rand kind of, idea and philosophy of going after yourself and being a rugged individualist. And, I kind of like reading those books, but at the end of the day, it's like we're so separated from each other. And I don't know. It's something weird about that, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it is quite funny because I think a lot of this stems from the scientific revolution that we have had in the West, right? And
Uh-huh.
we've used science as this ultimate truth teller, right? The revealer of all truth. And when you go down the path of looking into science, you start to recognize, I mean, first of all, it's fraudulent as hell. I mean, it's all nonsense. I mean, straight up, it is paid for, it is bought, it is suppressed, it is manipulated. It is utter nonsense on the whole. There is good science that's being done. There are great research studies. We can learn a lot. We have learned a lot. But at the end of the day, it's also looking at things we can measure and things that are in the physical world. So if basically science takes the approach of if we can't measure it, it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
And this is complete nonsense, right? Because you can't measure love. And yet we all would agree that it exists, right? This is the problem with science. It'll never verify God, whether or not there is a God or not. It will
Hmm.
never verify that. Consciousness. This is a new science, right? That many scientists and researchers are looking into consciousness science. How we're going to measure this is sort of ridiculous because the thing that we're trying to measure is the thing that is creating everything in the first place. So, it's like an eye trying to look at itself. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, there's just so much that we're not going to be able to accept when we stick in this realm of science the way that it is now. So I think we have to open ourselves up to the things that are beyond the scientific method. And at the end of the day, science doesn't prove anything anyway. It only disproves. So in that regard, we should accept every possibility that we can imagine and then wait for science to disprove it, right? So in other words, God exists until science says it doesn't. And this is the type of thing I think that we should get back into because ultimately that's the truth. So, to your point, I think that we're becoming disconnected because we are forgetting the sort of esoteric things, the non-scientific things that connect us. Our ancestry. I mean, there's so many things that I think we've lost touch with. What a thought is, what an idea is, what emotion is, how we can be connected to the past, what the future is. There's all these sort of concepts that you find in other traditions, other cultures, other religions, other spiritual practices that we had just completely shoved aside in favor of the physical form. And so I think the basic things of who we are and where we come from and what we're doing here are just sort of left to the wayside. We don't think about those things anymore.
Hmm.
And I think part of the reason is because we are disconnected. So it's a self-fulfilling or self-fulfilling prophecy to some degree, and it's a cycle that can just kind of feeds on itself, which is that we disconnect from nature and each other which makes us forget that we're a part of it and that we are it, and again, once we disconnect from it, we forget who we are, we forget where we're from, and we don't really want to get out in the midst of it. And then all of a sudden we go out and we see some magic in nature, and we just start to realize sort of who we are, right? I mean, again, I think the most basic example is probably hunting, the life cycle process itself, life and death, birth and death. Very few of us actually see birth anymore, and even fewer of us see death of any kind, whether that's animals or other humans. And so when you don't see death, you get disconnected from death. And by disconnecting from death, you start to you don't appreciate life as much, right? Because you don't realize how fragile it is. So these are the type of things that I think that just getting out of the natural world and the natural cycle of things, we lose touch with what's important, and we lose the philosophy, we lose the understanding, we lose the introspection, and we lose the magic of life. And I think as people start to explore with different topics, whether that be with breath work or dream analysis or psychedelics and plant medicines or all kinds of these type of things that you're starting to see crop up, people are starting to sort of get back in touch with the magic of life again. And I think as that happens, you start to wake up to the fact that all this bullshit that we have in our world today is just that. It's not that important. The money that I'm making, the cars that I'm driving, the shoes that I like, it's all kind of nonsense. And it does not give you what you're really looking for, And so I think this is where, again, we're putting meaning in the wrong places. We need to be putting meaning back into some of the more basic fundamental principles that involve who we are if we want to be healthy, happy, and enjoy life. Because all that other stuff is just a distraction. And I think as you hear this over and over again with people that are very wealthy, that are very successful, that's a fun game to play until it's not, until you realize it just didn't get me anywhere. The things that I really want aren't showing up in those items. And so, we just have to get back in touch with some of this stuff. And I think part of it is going back to the simple life. And this is what you see when you go to these places around the world where you find the happiest people, is that they live such a simple life. And in doing so, you start to appreciate things more. And it doesn't mean you have to live a life, a meager life that you're struggling. It is simply recognizing that what the important things of life are, and all the garbage that you don't need. This provides a different sense of time, a different sense of appreciation. And so your meaning is just placed in other things that I think actually do contribute to your happiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very well said. We're with Jason Prall. What do you guys think so far? If you want to check out his website, check it out. It's humanlongevityfilm.com. And when we come back from the break, I want to ask him about, how can we disconnect ourselves from this modern world, and what can we do as a culture, as a species, to bring more of that awareness into our life and to develop our spiritual nature more. And so make sure to check out his website, humanlongevityfilm.com. And when we get back from the break, if you guys have any questions in the chat room, I will answer or ask him those questions. So make sure to type those in all caps. And I wanted to let you guys know about this Bellicon rebounder. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's one of the things that Jason's talking about here is that none of these things that we sell on our website are designed to cure anything. They're not designed to, do anything other than, make you a little bit healthier. And one of the things I really want to stress, and this is probably bad for business or whatever, but I want to stress before I start talking about the Bellicon is that, you don't need any of these things to be healthy and happy. I state this a lot on our show is that, ultimately, satisfaction and connection and being involved in your purpose and having meaning in your life is ultimately what brings you long life and health and happiness. But these Bellicon rebounders and some of the different things that are in our store do sort of speed up the process a little bit. But don't think you need one of these to be healthy. If you follow our Instagram, you probably see me jumping on mine quite often. I take mine in the backyard, and I'll show you some pictures. I jump on it out in the sun, and rebounding is really amazing for developing your lymphatic system and increasing lymphatic flow, and helping the lymphatic system sort of flush all the toxins, because your whole lymphatic system is filled with millions of one-way valves, and using the G-force of an up and down motion allows those toxins that get stored there to come out and to be flushed out. And oddly enough, you have more lymphatic fluid in your body than you do blood, which is pretty crazy. But here you can see a picture of me with our little Bellicon there, and there's pictures of me and videos of me doing it as well. I do it every single day, like I said, outside. And it's also great to detox the body, to prevent disease, increase circulation. It's great for bone density as well. Helps increase oxygenation of the tissues. It's really an awesome exercise. And if you don't have one, I'd recommend, saving up and getting one. I think these things are really, really great. And one of the other things that we've been using a lot lately too is our Magnetico sleep pad. And that's why I sort of have on our store, different sections called light, water, and magnetism, because magnetism is a huge part of our life. And, the magnetic field of the Earth has been decreasing, some say up to 80% over the last 4,000 years. This has to do with the Earth crusts, the crust of the Earth cooling, and the lava preventing the magnetic charge of the Earth from being emitted from the crust of the Earth, and all of these sort of things. But, magnetism is just huge. And I like it too, because what it allows the body to do is sort of bathe in a magnetic field as you're sleeping. And with the 5G technology coming and EMFs and all these types of things, if we are living a modern lifestyle, I like to bring sort of pieces of equipment into our home, especially where we spend the most amount of time. And that helps to help the body to heal, to optimize our sleep. And, it was said that in the Babylonian Empire, the magnetic field of the Earth was 3 to 5 Gauss. And now, for some reason, it's 0.5, so it's way less than that. So bringing more magnetism into your life is incredible. And if you use code EHR10, you can save 10% on your order of the Magnetico sleep pad. So I'd recommend checking that out. And here is Jason's website, the Human Longevity Project. This is really cool. You can get episode 1 for free. And it says it here, for those that are listening on the podcast, it takes you on an exciting journey around the globe from the world's healthiest centenarians and shows you how to apply their ancient wisdom to modern life. And I want to bring Jason back up because, Jason, before the show, or before the break, I should say, you were talking about, how do we bring some of these practices into our life, and for people to understand who they are and what their purpose is, to find meaning, to find happiness. Ultimately, it comes down to all of that. So, for someone who's a busy working person, maybe they're working a job that they're not, passionate about. They don't have a lot of good relationships in their life. What are some things people can do, do you think?
Well, I just heard those devices that you had during the break, by the way, and I actually want to add to that because that's really cool stuff. I actually have the Magnetico sleep pad myself. I've got the 20 Gauss, and it actually is really important. And what's happening is with the Earth, according to research and some pretty good science, that the poles are actually wandering, and instead of being sort of perfectly aligned and opposite of each other, there's multiple poles on the north and south, and they're actually wandering around. And basically, what that does is it decreases the magnetic, it decreases magnetism around the Earth, but it does so in an uneven way, in an undistributed way. So it's not exactly uniform around the planet. But this is actually this decreased magnetic field. Actually, what's happening is we are getting extra solar energies and extra solar energies coming to the Earth. So we're actually seeing like UVC is now increasing on the planet because of our magnetic field. Our magnetic shield is not as protective. So anyway, it's really interesting stuff what's happening as we're moving into new parts of the galaxy, and we're getting new energies, and all this stuff is changing. So I actually have a Magnetico sleep pad, and I will say that the rebounder, doing it outside, is the greatest thing you can do, because getting outside with the light, we actually know that light, particularly sunlight, is the most beneficial actually charges the water and actually creates a motor-like effect. And this actually impacts the lymphatic system. So blood flow and lymphatic system will actually improve just by getting outside. Now, when you rebound, you're actually increasing that further. So I love this stuff. Honestly, this is the point of the documentary that we made, is to bring back this old ancient wisdom and the knowledge that they had and the way that they lived their life, knowing that there's some of that stuff that we can bring forward, but also we're not going to be 1942 Nicoya, Costa Rica anymore.
Right,
We are
right.
in a new world, new environment. So using things like the magnetical, using things like rebounders and red light therapies and infrared saunas and cold therapies, this is cool stuff. I do all of this because it's so beneficial. It is fun, and it can increase your health. The point I think that we wanted to make in the film is that if you're focusing on those only and not some of this other stuff, you're going to be looking for answers to your health problems outside of yourself. And I think doing that and only doing that is detrimental. So by bringing a lot of this wisdom from the past and just an understanding, it's really just an overall understanding that living in a simple way, slowing these things down, understanding your environment is critical to your behavior. Getting rid of toxic chemicals and these type of things because they didn't operate that way. Birthing in a natural way, breastfeeding, until 6 months, a year, hopefully, and maybe even longer if you really believe that you can do that in this modern world. These type of things, I think this is what's important, is to recognize that humans have been operating a certain way for thousands of years around the world. And now we've, in the last 100 years, drastically shifted the way that we interact with our environment and the way that we behave. And we just need to recognize that how can we align with the way that we're sort of been doing things for thousands of years that we know are healthy, while also incorporating the new technologies in a way that is cohesive to this operation, as opposed to detrimental, right? So I think this is sort of the big overarching takeaway, is understanding that we need to still get outside and get our feet on the ground and get in touch with the earth and grow food in really high quality soil. That organic alone is not enough. And if we can grow foods in season around us, and consume foods directly from the earth, this is the type of thing that's going to be beneficial, as opposed to going to your Whole Foods, getting the organic apple chips in the bag that have sulfites and maybe some other crap in there, and
Yeah.
thinking, oh, it's cool because I'm eating organic. And yet 60 years ago, nobody on the planet was eating apple chips from a bag, organic or not, with sulfites added.
Yeah, yeah, it's so. I love the way you put that. It's so funny. So I wanted to ask you about like this idea of doing work that you love and how that affects your health. So with work that you love, if you look at primarily agrarian cultures and cultures, 6,000-7,000 years ago, they were basically just trying to stay alive every day, right? Trying to gather enough food. And so there wasn't this idea that they could actually affect human lives in the way that we can today. And I know for me, if I were doing a job that I did not like, that would be a huge impact. That would have a huge impact, negative impact on my health for sure. And doing this job now, I don't consider it really a job. It's a lot of fun to talk to people. It has a positive impact on me. I get to talk to people like you who are helping open my mind to new ideas and philosophies. So back, 6,000-7,000 years ago, that wasn't even an option. Now it's an option, and people might be working a job they hate and they realize they could do something like that. And now it's an option. So now it's like that itch that's always sort of making them feel dissatisfied, which in and of itself is also a stressor because they want to do something that they're not doing. And that's a stressor as well because there's that option these days. So I'm wondering for you, like, would you feel a negative impact on your health and your possible longevity if you were doing a job that you knew was very toxic or you knew was very stressful or you hated? And how can people manage this whole career side? Because for me, it's a big deal.
Yeah, no, you hit on a really important point. And there's a book that I love. It's called The Paradox of Choice. And
Oh,
there's a lot of concepts in there, but one of the key takeaways is that as you increase choice, you actually increase the stress and the issues. If you go into a grocery store and you have 2 boxes of cereal to choose from, it's pretty easy to make a decision. You know kind of which one you like better. If you have 40 all of a sudden it's really hard to make a choice, right? Because you're sort of left with this idea of like, what am I missing if I go over here and do this one versus that? And how do I find the best, right? And I think it's an important factor that you bring up, which is that, you know, these people that were in these other cultures that even that we visited, forget 7,000 years ago, I'm talking 60 years ago in these places, they didn't have a choice necessarily of what to do. You know, my father was a certain profession, and therefore I became that profession. Right, I followed in the footsteps of whatever was needed around the house, whatever was needed to be done, and maybe where my skill set, you know, lended. But it may or may not be something that I truly loved. And so it's not like they had a lot of choice back then, even 60, 70 years ago, of what to do. And so because there wasn't choice, there wasn't any agony about what they were doing. This is
Yeah.
just what they did to survive. And where they really found value is in the everyday things. Again, it's the simplicity. They found value in, you know, a really good harvest, you know, really great summer. They found value in hanging out with friends. And sometimes, I mean, one guy was telling us a story. I think this is in Ikaria, Greece, that
Uh-huh.
they were walking through the village to go to work, and they saw a friend, and they would just stop and say hi and hang out with a friend, and wouldn't go to work. You know, and it's
That's
not like they had
awesome.
a boss that was going to, you know, reprimand them,
Yeah.
and it's not like they had a paycheck that they were, you know, missing. They just, that was where their values were. They wanted to hang out with a friend. So, you know, it was a very different lifestyle that I think
Yeah.
we don't really understand totally, you know, in the way that we live. And so that said, I think you bring up a really good point, which is that because we have so many options now, and literally, you know, for most people, the options are limitless. You know, we do have some restrictions, you know, in our circumstances,
Uh-huh.
but at the end of the day, we have a society that is, you know, we can move up and down really easily, you know, economically speaking,
Mm-hmm.
and the options and the opportunities really are there in most of Western cultures. And so because of that, we do feel this pressure to find something that we're good at or that we do, that we love, et cetera. And I think we're the problem that we're facing is that people are going into professions because of what society tells them is valuable or what they should do, what they should want. Their parents maybe are pushing them in a direction that is not in alignment with who they are. And so we're sort of chasing these things that because we don't really know what we want and who we are. And so I think we can often get stuck in that. And I have been in that spot. You know, I was a mechanical engineer for 10 years. I, to some degree, enjoyed it because I was good at it. I was good at math. I was good at problem solving. I was good at physics and these type of things. But ultimately, I didn't really care about it. It didn't have meaning for me. And so I got to a point in that career where it was causing a lot of turmoil. I became a person that I didn't really enjoy because there was sort of internal strife. And until I recognized where that internal strife was coming from, you know, it just ate me up. And then finally, when I left, even though my security was reduced, you know, by my safety net wasn't as stout, I still felt better. So, you know, I pursued something that I had interest in. You know, I didn't know if I was going to be really good at it. I had no idea, except for I had an interest. So I followed that path into the health world and became sort of a practitioner. And here I am sort of in this different profession, educating, speaking, and working with people on their health. And I truly love it. And I think there is no right answer. You don't have to save the world. You have nothing. You don't owe anybody anything. You know, I think we just have to recognize who we are, what we really want. And that takes some practice, I guess, in life. You have to sort of engage the world. You have to figure out what does sort of turn you on, what gives you that sense of joy that you can't find anywhere else. And so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter what that is. Don't let society, you know, tell you what you should want or should do or anything. You know, it's just a matter of following really where your bliss is. I think
Yeah.
as you do that, you start to recognize that the most important thing is for me to be happy as often as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the goal. And the irony and the twist on that is that when you start operating from that space, you'll find that success finds you. You'll find that the people around you are changing. You find that you're making a bigger impact because you're being your true self. You're
Mm-hmm.
following your path of who you are. And there is no right or wrong other than being true to yourself, living your truth. In doing that, you change everything for
Mm-hmm.
everybody else. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that is the most enlightened state that we can be in is following our own truth of who we are. And sometimes, especially given our Western world, we're sort of distracted too much. We're pulled in so many different directions. It can be a
Totally.
little difficult to figure out who that is, who that person that's really inside. But doing that work and just being exploratory and listening to that sort of intuition and the gut feel and following those things, I think that's really where we thrive. We put our best foot forward. We feel our best. We attract the best, and we influence in a way that we can't otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so well said. I mean, it's interesting too because there seems to be, in my mind at least, a couple different ways to explore who we are. One is actually doing the work like you're talking about, which is super important because if we never do that, we never do figure out who we are and why we're here. But then the other is sort of shutting off all of the voices, external voices that are in our life that we know don't resonate with us, right? Like family and friends who tell us things that tell us to do things that we should be a certain way. Media. But what's really weird about all of that is that, like, we all know we live in this modern world. We watch the news or whatever most people do. I've stopped doing that, but it's weird because when you start living in this modern world, you think that those outside voices, like people telling you by this age you should be doing this or this age, doing that or whatever it is, eventually it starts becoming so much a part of you that you just accept it all, and then you think that those are your thoughts after a while.
Yep.
It's so weird,
100%.
isn't it? Weird.
And I think it's even more so now because of social media, right? Just flipping through Instagram, you'll find these messages that aren't yours that if you see it enough, you'll start to believe that that's the way the world is. You start to see the reality through those lenses, whether it's somebody that's complaining about somebody. I mean, a perfect example is in our politics. I mean, whether it's Trump or Obama, you see people having certain opinions, and that's going to influence you. It's going to trigger you. It's going to, create this thought process that isn't maybe yours, but you're sort of being influenced about what the group is thinking. And so we see this all the time about the values in our societies. This is the culture. This is the idea of the culture. And so your culture will affect you. This is why you see, people in the U.S. are vastly different than people in Costa Rica. Their culture is different because their influences are different, so their thinking is different, their emotions are different. So we have to recognize that our culture is very powerful, and it will influence us. Whether you want to call it good or bad is irrelevant. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what is your message, what is your truth, versus what is sort of being what you're inundated with. I think it's very difficult for a lot of people to sort of suss that out. And especially because a lot of times our desires, our wants, the person that we are, the person that we become may change, as we get older, as we mature, as we try new things. And so we're kind of all over the map and we're constantly in new territory, I think. And so you kind of have to learn how to listen to who's inside and what the message is really saying, coming sort of from within. And I think this is why we're starting to implement more of these practices that are stilling the mind, things like yoga and meditation and prayer and journaling and writing and these digital detox retreats. And we're starting to get more into these type of practices, the breath works, because they're finally allowing us to come back into who we are, as opposed to being in this external world where it is very confusing. The more you go inside, the less confusion there is, the more simple things become. And I think you just have to learn to trust that, despite what the external world is sort of telling you all the time.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I couldn't agree more. Years ago, my jiu-jitsu teacher gave me a series, like a tape series. It was changed my life forever. It was by a guy by the name of Jim Rohn. You probably know who he is. And he's one of my favorite sort of success kind of principle people, but personal development guys. But the thing was called The Challenge to Succeed. And in that, he was talking about, like, be careful who you surround yourself with, because, like, if you're in a sailboat and two boats take off from the same location, and one of the sailboats changes their direction, their degree by 1 degree, after 4,000 miles, they're going to be in completely different locations on the earth, right? So those little influences from our friends, from our family, like you're saying, they all affect us and they affect who we become. And so many times in the alternative natural health world, we're focused on the food we eat. but like you're saying, you can't be an angry person. I always talk about the angry vegan,
Yeah.
and it's what's going on inside, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is, and I think it's a really good point because as you start to veer off track, the longer you go, the farther away you realize you are to where you ultimately want to be, to your
Yeah.
destination. And I think oftentimes people look at this in a negative way. Oh, be careful you don't surround yourself with negative people, with people that bring you down, etc.
Uh
But I
huh.
think there's just as much of a danger in going the opposite direction. Take a guy like Gary V, right? Gary Vaynerchuk, who
Right.
I'm sure maybe a lot of your listeners know. This guy is electric. He's magnetic. He is successful. He's wealthy. He's energized. He's got a lot of qualities that are very attractive. And I think a lot of people want to be Gary V,
Right.
but he is him. You know, he's his own person. I think the biggest thing that I admire about a guy like Gary Vee is that he's true to himself. He's a psycho when it comes to working his tail off and business and entrepreneurship and hustling.
Uh huh.
You'll hear him talk about hustle, hustle, hustle. That's him. I know plenty of other successful people that don't hustle. That their idea of success is totally different. Surfers. I'm in California. I'm in Carlsbad here, San Diego area. There's tons of surfers that live a fantastic life. They're not millionaires. They don't have multiple businesses, but they get up and they enjoy their day and they love life. And I would say that they're in tune with themselves just as much as Gary Vee, despite the stark contrast in money and quote unquote success. So be careful what you identify. When you're looking at people that you want to emulate or follow, make sure that that's really what you want. Do you really want to be Gary Vee? Because I guarantee you, he lives a crazy life that is not as sexy as you think it is. You see this a lot with celebrities in Hollywood and in the music industry. We admire these people. We think, oh, it would be so wonderful to be so loved and admired, and all these people, wanting my attention and all this money. And you talk to them, and they're just like, they don't want any of it. Half of
Mm-hmm.
them,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to be careful, really, what we think we want. Again, that's why I say that you have to go inside and really figure out what's there and what it is that's driving you. Forget about the vision board crap. I'm so not a believer in vision boards. I think the vision boards come from this idea of you thinking you know what you want, projected out a number of years, but that's based on your past, who you've become between now and your first memory, if you will, or even before that. So as you grow, I think that's going to change. And as people start to change and their vision board stays the same, they go, oh man, I'm not sure. And the question is, well, if can we change what we want at any given day? And I think the answer is yes. If you're growing, if you're constantly engaging life, the idea of who you want to become may change.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would argue that the real objective is to continue to look inside, not look externally for what we think we want to become, but rather keep looking inside and figure out what is it that makes me happy today? What is it that I want to do today? Live more in the moment, follow and trust your intuition, follow and trust what's coming from within. And I think that will just naturally lead you in a good direction. Myself, I couldn't have imagined where I am today 10 years ago. If I would have made a vision board 10 years ago, it wouldn't look anything like my life today. And
Yeah.
I'm very happy today. I'm more happy today than I was 10 years ago. And so, I think we just have to be careful with what we're trying to project out into the future, and instead recognize who we are, what we really want, what we enjoy, and follow that and just see where it goes. Trust that life is there for you and you can enjoy every single moment, and you have no idea what's around the bend, good or bad. And whatever comes your way, it's continually your decision about how you want to approach this, right? They say that life is 90% about or 10% about what happens to you and 90% how you react. And I would totally agree. And in fact, I'd probably skew it more in the direction of how you react, because whatever happens to you is just there for your sort of play. It's just for you to enjoy and experiment with and explore and get a deeper understanding of who you are. So, I think we just have to go in again and figure out what we really want and engage the world. We can't sit back passively and not do anything. And when I say not do anything, I mean, completely disconnect from the reality of who we really are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so well said. And it's interesting too that, so many different cultures that you visited. Back when I was 25, I took the company I was working for a surfing company. It went belly up here in Orange County, and I had been saving for many years. And I went sort of in my, what's the name of that book? Gosh, what's the name of that book where it's the hero's journey,
Hero's
right?
Journey.
Yeah, the hero's
Yeah.
journey. So I did my own sort of vision quest. I went around the world by myself and took a year off and went surfing different places. And that was one of the best things I've ever done. And it's something that I think we all need to do at some point in our lives. Is like you're talking about, figure out who you are and why you're here, and having a connection to that. And, it's just wild that so many people you spoke with around the world that live a long time, and not just live a long time, but they're healthy into their 90s, and beyond. They have a deep sense of all this stuff. And I just think it's funny. At the end of the day, there's diet and all these things, but man, it really just goes down to the simple aspects of life, doesn't it?
Well, and this is why sort of I argue when people say you have to have a purpose or, find your purpose. And I'm like, I don't know that that's really what it's about. I think life, the totality of life has a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that each person needs to have a quote unquote purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The people that we talked to in Sardinia that were 105, they wouldn't tell you that they had a purpose. They would just tell you that sort of God gave them everything and they're just here. I mean, they just don't think in those terms that, like, I'm here to change the world or I'm here to improve anything. They just live their life in a way that is in accordance with those around them, to in alignment with who they are, in alignment with the people around them, with the earth. They just tended to live in a state of harmony, and they didn't really go beyond that. Everything else is sort of in God's control.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of out of their purview, and they just lived in a way that was conducive to harmony and happiness, and that's really what it was about for them. And the meaning was all around them. It was in the rituals, it was in the practices, it was in honoring their ancestors. In Okinawa they have they have a big mantle and they honor their ancestors. It was in the phrases that they said before they ate. It was in the practices that go into gardening. It was all around them. So the meaning, they infused into their world. And so this idea of purpose, I think, is probably a little off, and I think it comes from sort of a capitalistic mindset that we have to go conquer the world in some way. I don't know that we have to have a purpose. I think it just comes back to more in the realm of meaning and connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Good stuff. So I want to bring up your website here for people to check it out, which is cool that people can get access to episode 1. So if people go to your site, humanlongevityfilm.com, they can sign up. And when they sign up, do they get the first episode? That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah, they get the first episode free, and there's 9
That's
episodes
cool.
overall. And in this discussion, we got a lot. We sort of stayed in the realm of the philosophy and the practices of sort of connection and these type of things. But I will say that throughout the film, we talk on a very geeky level about health and biology. In fact, episode 1 goes deep into mitochondrial function and how the cell functions to lend itself towards longevity or ill health. And so we talk about mitochondria. We talk about the microbiota that live in our gut and around our body. The interaction between microbiota and mitochondria. They actually communicate. They communicate with our cells. We talk a lot about the immune system, about the environmental health and toxins and chemicals and these type of things. Episode 3 is for those people who love diet and exercise. Like that's the episode there. It's fascinating because what you find around the world with different populations that live a long time, they eat all kinds of foods, tomatoes and cheeses and breads and beans and rice and corn and basically everything that we demonize here in the West,
All
they're
right.
eating. And so we have to figure out how can we explain that? How can we reconcile that with what we were finding in the West? And there's very, very good explanations to why it is that people in Costa Rica can eat tons of corn and beans and be totally healthy, and why we may not be able to do that here in the West. And so, we cover a lot of that stuff and childhood traumas and birthing. And, we tried to cover the spectrum because at the end of the day, longevity is about the entirety of lifespan. It's not about what happens when you get to 50 years old and beyond. breastfeeding is a massive contributor to longevity. So we have to look at that. And when you look at around the world, this is what they're doing in completely different ways than we are. So, there's a lot there. It's very, very heavy in the science if you're that type of person. But it's hopefully not too much for people, because there is a lot of takeaways, I think, that are very applicable. It's not a theoretical documentary film series. It is very grounded. It is very practical. The idea is just to infuse the lessons, so that you don't have to continuously look for answers, that you already have the answers because you understand what's contributing to your health.
Mm-hmm. That is awesome. Awesome stuff. So, looking at your journey and where you've come from and what you've done recently over the last few years, this is a pretty crazy sort of step to take to make this, massive documentary like this. I have to think that you have projects in your mind and things that you're looking to create. And what's next for you? What new things are you going to be creating, do you think?
Yeah, we're gonna sort of we're working right now on a course that sort of a masterclass, if you will,
Okay.
that is kind of based on the film. So to take people through a process to recover their health and restore health. So it's just sort of a step by step for those people who really like sort of a guided process. So we're working on that right now, and I think that'll be out early next year.
Oh, cool.
We're working on our next film series, which I'm really excited about. I haven't talked about it before, but it's going to be looking at the ancient healing traditions from around the world, things like Chinese medicine and qigong and yoga and tai chi, and all the practices that come from the North American natives, like vision quests and these type of things, plant medicines like ayahuasca in South America. We're going to be looking at a lot of these things from around the world, the Pacific Islanders and Hawaii and the Kahunas and the Maori, and we want to get a sense for their healing practices, their philosophies around health, the practices that they actually used. And so we'll be kind of going through those, showing those, and hopefully we get a sense about some of these older, more traditional practices that we find in sort of the more shamanic or medicine people type cultures around the world.
Oh, dude, that sounds so good. I'm so excited. Man, I want that to be done now so I can watch it right now.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. That'll be a fun one, and we're going to show that stuff. So we're going to show what it's like to go on a vision quest and the meaning behind it and sort of the essence of this stuff. Even things like ayahuasca. People are somewhat familiar with this plant medicine aspect, but maybe they don't understand the essence of where it came from, why it's used, and really what the power is. And it's not just this sort of psychedelic druggy thing. It is infused. It is a medicine that's used by shamans to heal people. And so we want to get to the bottom of this stuff and understand that the philosophy and the wisdoms that come from all these type of practices. Breath work is another huge one that's used by a number of cultures. We want to get the essence of really why that is used, and then go through it and show what some of these breath works can do, what these kundalini can do, tantra, all these things that are being used around the world, the ancient methods and why they're being used and how we might be able to infuse those into our Western culture, because we're starting to see those pop up more and more. And so I think getting an essence and a feel for the history of that stuff, I think is going to be important, as opposed to, just do this because it's supposed to be good for you.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that sounds amazing. Man, we've done 610 shows. This is episode 610. And I don't know that we've talked to anyone in the last 609 shows that is more closely aligned with my vision for what we're doing here than you.
No,
Because,
awesome.
yeah, like
Thank you.
your whole mission is just exactly the same as our mission. I've yet to talk to someone like you. So this is amazing. Is the main website, humanlongevityfilm.com? Is that the website?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And that's where you can go and just sign up and watch episode 1 for free. Again, prepare to geek out. There's some philosophy, there's some deep science, but it's definitely a fun episode, and it kind of sets the stage for the rest of the series.
Dude, that's awesome. Okay, cool. And if people sign up to the newsletter list, will they get access to your upcoming projects, the stuff you were just talking about? Will that be announced there?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, so we're going to have a few events coming up early next year. We try not to spam you. We try to let people know of the good events that are around and popping up that we align with, that we support. But yeah, it's not we have a lot of good things coming early next year. So you can find that on the email list.
Awesome, awesome, cool, dude. And thank you personally for your email about the microphone. We're having some mic issues, which is why we're doing this remotely. But dude, I would love to do this in person as well, man. You're just 30 minutes away, so this would be really great to do in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I headed down to Costa Rica here for a retreat that involves some research for our next film series to a place called Rhythmia that's going to involve
Wow.
some breath work and some plant medicines and working with some shamans. So maybe after that we can get together in person because I'd love to meet you and share what we find.
That'd be awesome, man. That'd be so fun. All right, man. Well, have fun. I know you're going to get on a plane here and travel here pretty soon. So have fun on your next trip, and let's definitely keep in touch. And dude, keep up the great work.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. All right. Wow. What a cool guy, huh? Jason Prall, what did you guys think? There's something about that guy that just really resonated with me. And let me take these things out. I want to share with you a bunch of different things too, different ideas and, philosophies I had or different thoughts I had during the show. But what did you guys think? That's the most important. What did you guys think of Jason Prall? What I really like about this sort of after show is when you guys are in the chat room and we're kind of just all going back and forth, sharing what's working and what's not, and answering questions and stuff like that too. Chris Kozak says, awesome subject. I learned a lot. Thank you. Yeah. I love Namin says snort C60. We did a show a couple days ago about C60. Yeah, so like I was saying about Jason, first of all, I want to share with you guys a couple summits that are coming up that I think you guys really might be interested in, and I'll get to those in just a second. One of them is an autoimmune summit. The other one is a female hormone summit, and the other one is a pregnancy summit, which would have been really cool for us to get access to that before Kate gave birth to our twin boys. But I'll share with you the links for those things in just a second here. Want to get your thoughts on Jason and what you think about what he's talking about. And before I do that, though, I wanted to bring up this Magnetico, the Symbiotica. Have you guys tried this Symbiotica yet? This stuff is really powerful. We take it and we've been, giving it to our kids. Shh, don't tell anybody. But we've been giving it to our kids and we take it ourselves. And Symbiotica used to be called MitoLife. But what they've done is they've upgraded this DHA from a standard DHA to a DHA that's now infused with astaxanthin. And people like Dr. Jack Cruz say that DHA is the number one. Like if he were to say, he's a big fan of seafood DHA, but he says that DHA is the number one most important critical nutrient that we could take, right? But Matt is more of a vegan, so he created an algae-based DHA, and it helps to transport. It's a prime transporter for nutrients in the body. And it helps to repair cellular structure. It helps to carry an electrical voltage charge over the mitochondrial membrane so that your body can create ATP. It basically helps to power the mitochondria. And inside your body, you have 3,000 to 6,000 or 3,000 to 10,000 mitochondria per cell. So like a brain cell and a heart cell, because they're such critical organs, have the most mitochondria. And the mitochondria are basically like the energy power, supply of the cell, but they are what create electrical voltage in the body. Your mitochondria creates water, oddly enough, through sunlight and through DHA coming in through the eyes. And so DHA is so important for helping your over 100 trillion cells become healthier. And it's basically food for your mitochondria. And I just love this stuff. I take it every day. Kate takes it every day while she's breastfeeding. I think you guys are really going to like it. And then the other sort of product I wanted to tell you about was molecular hydrogen. Now, the three sort of elements that people talk about that were sort of the original elements were helium, hydrogen, and I think it's lithium. But everything comes from those. And hydrogen, let me bring up a an article here that I found about molecular hydrogen. We did a whole show about this with Dr. Mark Circus, and you can watch that on our page there. But it says here the hydrogen is the original element that gave birth to the periodic table. And so it's essentially it's a gas that you can put into your water. You can also get hydrogen concentrators and create your own hydrogen from a concentrator. But here's a quote from Tyler LeBaron, and we're going to have Tyler on the show here pretty soon, which is really cool. In fact, I just got an email from Tyler today. I think he just got back from Japan, he said, or China, doing a lot of traveling. But he says hydrogen is unique and superior molecule because it can activate the NRF2 life-sustaining pathway and increase the endogenous levels of glutathione and other antioxidants if they are lower than they should be. It also helps to improve cellular communication and provides a cell modulating property to the body to help prevent the formation of free radicals. This is Ed Wonder, who researches at the Molecular Hydrogen Foundation. It says here, it will not only clear up black smoke by neutralizing the free radicals, but it will also go into the factory and fix what's wrong so that the black smoke will not be produced at all. A 2015 study reports that hydrogen may significantly help us be better hydrated. And it goes on and on about the benefits of hydrogen. And we like the stuff from Vital Reaction, which is cool because you can pop these little tablets in your water, and essentially it creates hydrogen-rich water. And there's been studies showing, that hydrogen affects over 170 disease processes. So this to me seems like something that we should all be on as like a maintenance thing, something that we do every day. And a bottle will last you about a month, I'd say. And if you use the code EHR10, you can save 10% off as well. But the next step for me is to get one of these hydrogen concentrators. It's like a gas inhaler, and you can create hydrogen water, and that way you don't have to buy the little tablets. But I'd probably start out with the tablets and see how you feel on this stuff. I don't know. I think there's something really powerful about that, and I think that something that you could look into. And so one of the things that Jason was saying was that, like, I really love what he was talking about, like this stuff, hydrogen, taking molecular hydrogen, for example, or taking the DHA from Symbiotica. Like, they're not the end all be all, because it's still an exogenous substance that you're putting into your body that you're looking to that substance to somehow repair something you think is wrong within you. And so what I try to strive to tell people on our show so often is that you have to take everything that people say in our show and run it through your own process, your internal process. Because we're going to have people on the show that talk about the benefits of being vegan, about the complete polar opposite, eating raw animal food. There are people that do that. We had Agenis Vonderplanets on the show before he passed away, or he translated into another dimension, talking about the benefits of eating raw animal food. And not only that, fermented raw organs. Could you imagine eating like a liver that's raw, that's fermented? Oh my gosh. But he talked about, and I've talked to people in person who say that completely healed their gut. So, there's going to be people that say different things. And what's most important is for us to be so tightly aligned with who we are. And for me, I was going to tell Jason that, the last couple months, I haven't done any meditation at all. And meditation is something, you want to find out how disconnected you are from your own self. If you don't meditate, sit down for 15 minutes and try to be calm about that. It's the hardest thing to do, right? Because your mind's going like, there's a million different people I got to get back to. I got to get back to emails. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to run the kids there. I forgot to pay this bill. And then you're sitting there thinking like, oh gosh, I got to write this down. Because I don't forget, and so your mind just goes on and on and on of things and that's our subconscious nature of ourselves trying to control the physical reality that we live in. And that's what we're all kind of doing with our health too, is that we're trying to control the exogenous circumstances of our lives so that we can make life the way we want it to be, rather than simply existing like Jason was talking about, and being in gratitude and alignment with who we are. Being in alignment with who we are and what our mission is. And so how do we do these things? Like, how do we figure out, because Jason kept talking about that, and I didn't really get out of him in the show, which I want to. Maybe when he comes in person, we've got to get our mics fixed for that. But we need to buy 3 new microphones. We're going to get those lavalier microphones so we don't have these big mics like this. But those things are like $400 each, I think. We need to buy 3 of them at least. So we're going to figure that out. But I didn't get from Jason, and next time he comes into the studio, we'll ask him this. It's like, what kind of practices does he do every day? Because a lot of times we get focused on the meat suit, the space suit, the physical, corporeal existence of our cellular matrix, the physical body, right? We focus on that. There's different people that say different things, and there are different trends in the alternative health world. You have people years ago that were talking about the spiritual, emotional side, and meditation and yoga and all this stuff. And then now you have a lot of people focused on the physical side of health. But ultimately, it all comes down to a hybrid of both of those things. But the problem is that it's easier to stand in front of a red light, which I do every day with the Juve that we have in our store. I stand in front of that thing, and I love it, but it's easier to do that than it is to sit down for a meditation. So yesterday I did the Juve light, and I was listening to a health podcast while I was doing that, because I love listening and learning new stuff. But would it have been better for me to do a meditation? I don't know. But I know that I feel completely ungrounded. Do you guys feel like that? I feel ungrounded when I don't do my meditation. Last 2 months have been incredibly stressful, incredibly amazing as well, with the birth of our two boys, twin boys, which is incredible. But at the same time, it's a completely life change, right? I'm 42 years old. And so, or I could say the earth or the sun has revolved around me 42 times, if, depending how you look at things. But, it's been a big life change for me. And for Kate as well. And so we've been a little bit stressed, I'd say. And so I haven't been able to get to a lot of my physical health practices. But how do we cultivate this awareness of who we are? How do we do that? Part of it, I think it's a 2-pronged approach. Part of it is cutting off completely everything in your life that causes you to doubt or causes you to think about things in a way that is not in alignment with what you want to do. Like, for example, if you have a parent that says, I want you to be a lawyer, everyone in our family, we're lawyers, you should be a lawyer, and kind of grooming you your whole life to be a lawyer, but you really want to be like a weightlifter, or you want to be a professional soccer player, or you want to, be a scientist, if that's what's within you, then you need to cut people out to the extent that you just don't listen to what they're saying and reconnect with who you are, because that's the most important thing. For me, in my life personally, I worked for a surfing company, and then before that I was working for a mortgage company, and doing computer work and stuff like that, and I was just completely unfulfilled in my life. I knew that I needed something better. I knew that I wanted to do something more, and I just felt like my life was not going to be behind a computer. And I knew that there was some rumbling within me that I had to do something different. I didn't know what that was. For me, a better opportunity came up doing the same kind of work, but working for a surfing company, which is a lot more fun, way less corporate, right? Working with professional surfers and stuff like that. And that was a lot more fun. But then I had saved up enough money, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just like, I don't know. I'm getting all this pressure. I'm 25 years old. I should have a career. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And then so at that point, I had saved up a bunch of money because I purposely wanted to go on a trip around the world. And so I was living at home, saving all my money. And so when the dot-com boom sort of happened in 2001, I decided, now's the time, now's the time to do what was planning on doing 2 or 3 years from then. So I took a train around the United States. I traveled all over for about a month in August. Oddly enough, right before 9/11, that was the month of August in 2001. And then I gained a lot of perspective. I learned from a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people. I was exposed to different people, different environments. I looked at what different people were doing, and I was trying to figure out if they're happy. And so a lot of internal sort of growth happening during that time. And then I came back at the end of August, at the beginning of September, and then 9/11 happened. And then everyone's afraid to fly, but I had a trip scheduled, right? So I had a trip scheduled. So then I decided, okay, well, I could either save my money, get another job, and just figure things out, or I could just say the heck with it. I'm not going to be afraid to fly, and I just went. So I remember that first flight out of Los Angeles to Tonga, a remote island in the South Pacific, where I knew nobody, was pretty stressful. It's like, I was really afraid to fly because of, it was just right after 9/11. So in any event, I traveled for a year and exposed myself to so many different cultures, just like Jason did, and really kind of had that hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talks about in his book. And I really learned a lot. I learned so much about myself and what I want. And then after that, right when I came back, I was exposed to, a friend of mine gave me a book called Fit for Life, and that opened up the whole health side of everything, because I knew that I was fit. I've always been a workout kind of guy, but I didn't know how to be healthy. I didn't know how to eat. I didn't know how to change my diet. I was eating a horrible diet. And so that opened up a whole new world, man. When I started getting exposed to information about personal development and success technology, spirituality, personal growth, superfoods, longevity, and all this sort of information, I started thinking, whoa, man, there's a whole world out here that I didn't even know about. So that just got the ball rolling of just learning and learning and learning as much as I possibly could about a particular subject, which was basically, it wasn't just health, it was spirituality. I've always been involved and interested, radically so, spirituality. I was Christian for many, many years. I wouldn't say I'm not a Christian now, but I was very deeply into that. Read the Bible 4 or 5 times, cover to cover, studied the Bible, did all that, went traveling. And so I think a lot of that is finding out who I am. And that's what Joseph Campbell talks about and Jason talked about, is you don't have to do all that to find out who you are. But I think the first step is shutting out people in your life that are trying to they're trying to download their agenda for what they think that they want. They want that for you. And the first step is shutting those voices down so that you can just have some calmness, right? It's like when you go into a room and there's like 50 people in there and everyone's talking at once, and then you go out back, or you go outside and you go in the backyard and it's silent, and you're just like, whew, wow, I could actually breathe and think for a second. Like, what do I want? What do I want my life to be about? It's when you shut everyone else's voices out that you start to realize, like, I have an opinion. I have something that I want to do in this world. What is that? And so I think our culture and society has done such a tremendous job in bombarding us with voices and messages, and just distracting information that happens in a feedback loop where it creates this dopamine hit, and we keep getting, it's like an addictive feedback loop of information that we don't even want, just to keep ourselves busy so that we can avoid the distraction of figuring out who we are and what we want. Because that's a lot of work. Like Jason was saying, like I was saying earlier, it's easier to stand in front of a Juve red light than it is to sit down and do a meditation, because that's work. That's reconnecting with the very essence of who you are. And sometimes that's frightening for people, So I'm curious, what did you guys think? I haven't looked at the chat here. A lot of people are chatting here in the chat room. This is awesome. ZZ Captain says the best environments are near healthy water. I'd have to agree with that. Nikki says the choice to not give our body to the worm or the flame is an unlimited one. Ascension. Yes. So true. Let's see. You guys are talking about a lot of cool stuff. ZZ Captain, yes, Mr. Prall has a ton of excellent insight. the foods of the islands he was talking about are healthy beans, for instance, not the toxic stuff in foods we buy in the United States. Yeah, those people obviously have a completely different microbiome as well. The microbiome is directly impacted by the light that we're exposed to in the environment that we're living in. And so all of this ties together. So, you guys are talking about all kinds of cool stuff. I feel like I'm missing out. Like I'm here. I'm just sharing some of my thoughts. ZZ Captain says, I want to hang out like cholesterol. That is what Dr. Bruce Lipton says cholesterol does in the human cell. Yeah. We had Dr. Lipton on the show some time ago. He was really great. I really like that, and, he and as far as people that are pretty impactful on the show, he was really impactful on the show we did with Dr. Bruce Lipton, as well as Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's the author of that book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And You Are the Placebo. And he has some interesting insights, Dr. Dispenza does, about becoming somebody different. And so what he says in that book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, is that if we want something different in our life, we can't be the same person that we are now and also have what we want, because what we are attracts what we have. And so what he was saying is like the same personality that we are now can't have something that we don't have, because our personality, our existing personality, is what created what we already have. So we need to become a different person. So we need to change our personality to change our personal reality, is kind of what he says in that book. And so, Dr. Dispenza was really cool to have on the show too. He's got a lot of interesting insight as well. I like him a lot. We need to change our personality if we want to change our personal reality. I thought that was a pretty cool quote of his. Or did he quote that? I think he may have said that in his book. It's been a while since I read it. I think it's I think it's one of those things where, like I said before, Jason is in true alignment with this show and reconnecting with who we are. That's really what it's all about. Maria says, wow, nice to hear you talking about your journey in life. Yeah, I don't really share it too often, what I've done and, things I've done. One of the things I was thinking about when he was talking was that book. He was talking about vision quests, and there's a really great book called by a guy by the name of Tom Brown called The Vision that I would highly recommend. And if you really want to learn more about vision quests and Native American Indians, that's a great book. It's called The Vision. You can get it on Amazon. And so for me, before I went traveling, Maria, just expounding a little bit more, my mom was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 1995, and all of this stuff that I was telling you about before I left on my trip happened in the early 2000s. So about 5 or 6 years had gone by after my mom was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, where it sort of rocked the very foundation of who I was, because at that point in my life, I had no idea what cancer was. I mean, I was 20 years old. I mean, I guess I knew what cancer was. A girl in our high school had died of cancer, and so I knew what it was, but it wasn't something that was like I thought about or I knew a lot of people with it. I was 20 years old. And so when my mom got diagnosed with that, it was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And wow, they're saying that she might be able to, or she might die as a result of this. Like, what the heck is this? It's funny what you think, isn't it? That you talk to a 20-year-old and it seems like they have everything figured out. But when you look back to when you were 20, you realize how little you knew, about life and how the way, the world worked and stuff. But I've always been a very inquisitive guy, curious about all this kind of stuff. And, for me, my whole life now isn't wrapped up around health. It's really wrapped up around how can I serve the most amount of people? How can I be fulfilled? How can I give back the most that's possible? How can I help as many people as possible? How can I enjoy my life? How can I do the things that I love to do, like go surfing and go traveling and go hiking and enjoy every minute of every day? That's really essentially what my life is about now. And obviously now that we have kids, it's amazing, a whole different dimension on that. But when my mom was came down with that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it was like the world just sort of stopped, because we're really good friends. We still are really good friends. And, she went to go see some natural, holistic, macrobiotic people down in San Diego. But she ended up going with the City of Hope. And so all of this happened, right? So she went through all of that and sort of recovered. And that's when I went on my trip. And when I was in South Africa, I was staying at a friend's house. And they had found another tumor in her lung, I think, and she was going in for surgery. And I remember calling her. This was 2001, before cell phones and cell phones were around, but not like today. So I remember calling her, going to an internet cafe in South Africa and calling her on the phone and saying, should I come home? I'll come home if you need me to be there for the surgery. I just felt really bad. And I felt so helpless, being in a country where, I basically knew two people, and having her go through this. And so it was really, really, really challenging for me to go through all of this. But when I came back, it was almost as if I tried to get my bearings, like, okay, I'm good at computers. I was doing some sort of marketing and different stuff online for people. And I just figured I'd start off with that. But then when my mom was sick and my friend gave me that book, Fit for Life, everything just stopped on a dime for me. And I realized that when you realize that, like, these diseases we have in our modern culture, they're not only are they preventable, but you can actually reverse them using non-toxic natural means. When you realize that, it's like, it's unbelievable in terms of what it does to you, because it opens up a world to you that you want to just shout it from the rooftops, right? You want to just say, you can overcome these diseases. You don't have to go through all these toxic treatments. And you want to tell people that. And so as you start learning more, then you start learning, wow, there's a spiritual connection to all this. Wow, there's an emotional connection to this, How do past lives play into this? And are past lives real? You start opening your mind from the really rigid Christian concepts that I had, to learning that, there's a lot of, validity. And over the course of 8-9 years of learning and listening and having an open mind, did I start to realize, like, there's truth in these things. And maybe what we've been told isn't the absolute truth. Maybe there's more options, maybe reincarnation is true, but also heaven and hell are true, if you believe in that in the Bible. Maybe both are true. It's like that book that Adam Bergstrom wrote called Yes, No, Maybe. Maybe there's a third option that we don't think about, and maybe not everything is black and white. And so you start realizing that, wow, chemotherapy and radiation and surgery and stem cell transplants and bone marrow transplants, maybe there's other options. And then I started thinking to myself, like, okay, so then you start seeing people who have reversed their diseases using these other options. Then you start thinking, like, okay, what's going on with chemotherapy and medical doctors? Did they not know about these? Why don't they know about these? Why don't they know about C60 for longevity? Why don't they know about artemisian? Why don't they know about Halin 951? Why don't they know about 714X? Why don't they know about SEACT? Why don't they know about these alternative cancer healing treatments, modalities? And then you start thinking, okay, well, they don't know about it because they were taught by the pharmaceutical industry through their education through school. And then you start looking at the connection between the pharmaceutical companies, right? And then you start looking at the education system, and you start realizing that the education system isn't this system that wants you to be a good citizen. They want specific things from us. And then you start realizing how the Rockefellers were involved in the American education system, and then the pharmaceutical companies were tied together with the Rockefellers. They created the Flexner report. They created the medical colleges, essentially driving out anyone who was using natural methods and holistic means back then. And then you start realizing, wow, they have a vested interest in these drugs. And then it starts making sense. Like, wow, okay, so now 80 years later, the reason why our current medical doctors don't know any of this stuff, no fault on them, but they don't know any of this stuff because they weren't taught it, and they weren't taught it for a very specific reason. And after they graduate, they got all of this debt, and now they have to start a practice, and then they get involved in this loop, right? This constant loop of trying to see 30 to 40 patients a day so that they can pay their staff and pay their rent and pay their bills and pay their expensive homes and lifestyle. Then you start realizing how broken the system is, right? And it becomes this connection. And like I was telling you about the Symbiotica earlier, that is a nervous system food. And when I started realizing that I can remineralize my body and my brain, I can start making new synapses and new neural connections. I start waking up more and more and start looking into more and more things. You start realizing, like, wow, this is amazing how all of this is connected, you know? And so it becomes like this journey in life where, you know, ZZ Captain, you said you're 60, so you've been through all of this and you've looked at all this stuff. And it becomes a journey in life where you start realizing the new doors open up to you the more you explore them. Like, I think there's a verse in the book of Acts where they were talking about why, you know, what do the people, you know, the pygmies in Africa who never hear about Jesus, what do they do? And I think there's a verse in the book of Acts in the New Testament where God says that to whom light is given, more light is given based on their response to it. So if you are willing and open to do some research, then you'll start realizing more and more things are opening up to you. And it's the same way, you know, we're all responsible for the amount of light that we're able to bring into our bodies. The amount of knowledge that we have, we're responsible not for all the knowledge, just for the knowledge that we have. And as you pursue more, in my opinion, God through us wants to explore, to expand, and to grow, and to experience life in this physical reality, because it's only through our physical bodies, right, that we can experience the jubilance, the joy, the ups, the downs, the successes, the highs, the lows, the defeats, the diseases, the pain, the joy. It's only through a physical body can we experience that. If we were just merely spirit, we wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't need personal growth. We wouldn't need any of these things because nothing could affect us. We're just a ghost. We're spirit. That's why this world that we're living in is the most dense place. It's the place to be, to learn how to grow spiritually and to learn how to grow emotionally, and to learn how to grow physically and in every other way. So that's why this idea that you can completely cut off being a healthy person from spiritual growth and personal development is just, it's not, these things are inextricably linked together. And that's why Jason's message is so cool. And I love what he stands for, and just teaching all of us that, you know, it's really important for us to go within ourselves. We have so many people that email into our show and they get upset with certain guests, or they say that certain guests are wrong, and then they ask my opinion, and they say, Justin, what's your opinion about this, that, or the other? And I always write back, it doesn't matter what I think. What do you think? You know, that's what we really need to start cultivating, is not listening to other people. Don't listen to me. Listen to other people. Listen to yourself. Bring it all together and then run that through your filter. You know, all the doctors we talk to on our show, they don't have all the answers. They don't know the ins and outs of what's going on with you. You know, what he or she may recommend may be good for every person on the planet except for you. Or what they may recommend might be good for every person on the planet except for you, but only except for you for the next 3 weeks. And the only way to know that is to take what they're saying and to really let it sink in and be with you, and to do meditation and to really ask yourself, is this right? Like we had, here's a perfect example, two examples from the show I'll share with you of people that I just disagree with. One is a lady named Cindy Sellers, and it doesn't matter if I disagree with her. She may be right, and I may disagree with her, and I could be harming myself. But if I go against with what I think, then ultimately what matters is what's going on in my own physiology. So she was on our show. She's a colon hydrotherapist practitioner working with people in Hawaii, and she says that it is unnatural and unhealthy for us to consume oils. You would never find an oil in nature. So she says that like coconut oil is something that is man-made, and that we need to avoid things that are man-made in our life. And that goes from obviously light, uh, different things, plastics, all these types of things. But she said you would never go through the forest or through the jungle or the desert or anywhere in the world and find something like coconut oil, and therefore it's unhealthy for you, right? So then we have Dr. Bruce Fife on the show, who's written a ton of different books all about the benefits of coconut oil, right? And so what you want to do is, I thought about many years, and I thought maybe asking you guys if you guys would like to see this, have a debate with these people, right? And have, here's another one. I mean, there's debates all the time. Dr. Jack Cruz says that DHA from seafood is the only way to go. Matt Blackburn, who we sell his Symbiotica, I really love it. He says that seafood has been tampered by acid rain, and there's parasites in it, and you don't want to consume that. But then again, he's got a product to sell, which is Symbiotica, which I love. So you don't know, right? So what do we do with these two conflicting ideas? So with Cindy Sellers and the coconut oil thing, I take coconut oil every day. I love it. And I looked at what she said, and it doesn't seem true for me. My body just thrives on coconut oil. Is it unnatural? Yeah, totally. Coconut oil is completely unnatural. You wouldn't find coconut oil in nature. You could find coconut meat, right? And then you would eat the meat. And that's specifically what she says, to take the meat. But, the oil itself, just because something is unnatural doesn't necessarily, in my mind, make it unhealthy. A green juice, you'd never find a green juice in nature as well. There's a lot of things that we do in today's world that, in my opinion, we have to do because we live in such an unnatural world, in order to mitigate the effects of living in that world that aren't natural. Like, perfect example is I'm wearing this. You guys can probably see this. This is a zapper that I have, that I wear. It's got plastic on it, right? It's got copper coils here and copper plates. This is an unnatural substance. You wouldn't find those, in the Garden of Eden, right? But because of the wireless radiation I'm exposed to, this is something that I do. So there's a lot of people that say things that conflict with one another, but the real thing is to focus on what you think. That's really, really, because what any of us say or do, it really means nothing. And so Nikki says, this is cool. Or Starlight says, one thing we all need is more nature in our lives. Yeah, Starlight, you're so right about that. That's something that I think is universal, right? There's a thing called forest bathing, and there's so much evidence and studies showing that just simply being in nature is a healing thing. We need to bring more nature indoors as well as spend more time outdoors. And that's one of the reasons why, like I did the commercial for the Magnetico mattress pad. That's mimicking nature. There's 2,000 magnets on that. You're sleeping in a magnetic field. This was the field of the crust of the earth back when their giants roamed the earth. So magnetism is huge, and that's why we like to bring more plants into the house. But then ultimately, no matter how much nature you bring in, it's always still better to be outside. So I couldn't agree with you more, Starlight. Got some really cool people in here. Nikki says, may we take heart in the beauty that is unseen here, but known in all other places. May we be at peace with who we are. I like that. May we take heart in the beauty that is unseen here, but known in all other places. That's really well written. I like that. Yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally. What's actually going on would probably blow all of our minds. Miss Vicky says the coconut oil works for her. That's awesome. Yeah, it works for me too. Is it unnatural? I mean, maybe you do the coconut oil and you realize after a couple of years you've overdone it, and there you go. But if we're not connected to who we are, we don't know. If we're so gummed up on the inside of our bodies and we don't have a visceral feeling of what food is doing to us, what other people are doing to us, if we don't have that innate knowledge and connection to who we are at our core being, we don't realize these subtle comments people make, or these sarcastic comments that people are saying to us, or the food that we're eating, we're not feeling what those things are doing to ourselves because we're so disconnected that over time, like Jim Rohn was saying in that the Challenge to Succeed course I listened to, that a couple little nods here and there, a couple little bumps from your friends, and it takes you off course. And all of a sudden, 20, 30 years later, you're realizing you're living a life that you never even, strove to do. You're doing something that you never even intended on doing, and it's happened subtly. It's little daily things that people throw you off course just a little bit, and so that's why it's so important, to be in tune with who we are and what feels good. And I like what Jason was saying, getting in alignment with how you're feeling. Ultimately, if we want to live a long time, it's really important to feel good. And that sounds so weird, right? It sounds like, feeling good. It's not about feeling good, but, feeling good is really important. And the more you can feel good, the more good things will come to you, the more roads will open up for you, and the better life you're going to have. Feeling good is it's not just a selfish thing. Faraday says, I'm 77. No way, that's great. Great to have you here. That's amazing. Did you happen to catch the show, Faraday, or are you just jumping on now? I'm curious. If you didn't happen to catch the show, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're doing 3 shows. This week was crazy. We had 5 shows this week, every day of the week. Typically, we're doing them on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. So it's really cool to see a lot of you guys. I just love it. It's like I have a group of friends, but I don't know you. It'd be great to meet you all in person one day. Maria Ars, ZZ Captain, Bob Dylan's here, Nikki Hinton, Miss Vicky, Chris Kozak, Namin, a lot of really cool people. P1000 Cool Picks was here. I think he or she had to go. But it's really cool to connect with you guys. So if you guys have any questions for me, I think would be kind of fun to do. Maybe we could do this on different broadcasts, is that we could get together as a group and all tackle each other's health questions. Now that would be really cool. Don't you think? Like, we could get together as a group, and if one person has some sort of health condition, like they've got a skin condition or whatever, arthritis or something, as a group, we could all offer some different things for that person to do. That would be cool. We do a lot of that inside the Extreme Health Academy too. So that's where I got the idea to do it here as well for free. But I think that'd be kind of fun, right? Maria says, love it, love it, love it. I have so much in common with you and Kate. That's so rad. I'm blessed to know about you and Kate. Hey, Maria, how did you find out about the show? I'm always curious, because we get new listeners all the time, people listening around the world. And I just wonder, do people share the show, or do you find it on iTunes? Or I'm curious how you found us. Yeah, it's cool. We're working on getting Kate back on the show as well. It's been a little bit of a transition with the new kids, and we have mic issues. If you guys listened to our show or watched it on YouTube, our episode 600, Kate and I were in the studio, but there's the mic was dropping out, so we have to get better mics. I was just looking at pricing some of those, and man, they're expensive. They're like $400 each for the lavalier mics that I want to get. So. We'll get those in time. Everything in due time, right? Everything is as it's supposed to be. Sally says, absolutely. I wrote a book called Remember Who You Truly Are. Wow. To reconnect you back to your spirit. Totally agree. I'm 60 and I was always out in nature. It's so healing. Wow, Sally. So is that book on Amazon right now? Remember? That sounds pretty cool. Let me look it up on Amazon. Remember Who You Truly Are. Let me search Amazon for that. That sounds like, it's like that book by Joe Dispenza. It's just such a catchy title, right? Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Oh yeah, that's on Amazon. How great is this? The Kindle edition is, let me bring this up on the show if you guys want to check it out. Remember Who You Truly Are, Love Unlimited by Sally Francis, available on Amazon. That's so cool. Wow, that's awesome. Wow, how cool, Sally, that you found us too. Looking here on Amazon, Remember Who You Truly Are. This is cool. Okay, I'm going to have to explore this book. See, this is the thing. Like, this is what is so amazing about the internet and so amazing about our lives in 2018. I wouldn't give living in this time for anything, because of this idea that like we have no idea what we could be exposed to at any given day. Like, you know, for me, it's particularly amazing because I get to hang out with people like you in the chat room, right? That's really fun for me. But I'm always like looking at YouTube videos, or I'm scrolling through podcasts or articles and different things like that. And you never know. I'm always looking for the next idea, concept, philosophy, protocol, biohack. I'm looking for the next thing that is going to just not just blow my mind, but change the way I live my life. Always looking for new information, something that really like makes me think, really expands my mind. You know, I'm looking for that always. And it's just crazy because when you come across some new concept that you've never heard of before, that radically blows your mind open, or maybe it's just a simple concept of realizing natural treatments can help for cancer. Let's just say it's that. What's awesome about living in 2018 is that you could wake up one morning not even having that intention, and that could be the day that you stumble across some information, some piece of information that can radically change not just your life, but the direction that your life is going as well. And that's what's so awesome about living in today's world, is that information can come at you in so many different ways. It's a little bit overwhelming, of course, but the fact that you can learn something new and you never thought that that was going to happen that day, or it was never even in your consciousness, is amazing to me. I wouldn't live, you know, I wouldn't want to live in the year 1200 and trade it for this, for sure. No way. Sally says, I played volleyball for England and taught tens of thousands and have coached thousands through my intuition. Bless you for sharing your show. Share this with people. Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. Wow, Sally, that's great. I'm also curious where you heard about us from. Oh, Maria says, Dr. Bergman. Is that where you found out about us? I love Dr. Bergman. He's such a good guy. In fact, we're streaming on Dr. Bergman's channel right now. That's how much I love that guy. He's so great. You know, his laugh is just so infectious. You know, that laugh that he has. You know, it's funny too. If you go to Dr. Bergman's clinic ever in Huntington Beach, all of his other chiropractors have that same laugh. It makes me laugh. It's hilarious. He's just an infectious dude. I love that guy. That's why we partnered with him in the Extreme Health Academy. That's not the only reason. He's, you know, such a great guy, works hard, and his intention is to help people, and I love that. Plus, he's just a treasure trove of knowledge. Sally says it was a calling to write the book, and has been called a radical new spiritual life handbook. Okay, cool, Sally. I'm going to check that out. I'm so in tune with health. I have cured myself of some things. I have acupuncture and done a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong. Yeah. That's awesome. See, all these things, acupuncture, Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, yoga, what's the commonality of all these things? Is accessing deep within ourselves the healing nature that lives within all of us. That's what those things have in common, is accessing that. And that's the problem with today's world, is they want to ask your doctor if this drug is right for you, right? Look at all the times you hear the word authority figures out there in the world. Authorities are now on the scene fighting this fire, right? Well, they're not authorities. They're simply firemen. They're human beings with the skill to fight fires. They're not authorities over anything. The bus system here used to be called OCTD, Orange County Transit District. Now it's called OCTA, Orange County Transit Authority. So the whole goal in all of society is to disconnect us from ourselves so that we can become these sort of rote automatons that make money for government. That's really what it's all about. And it all starts with a birth certificate, and it goes into a deep, deep understanding of contract law. But extracting ourselves from that, pulling ourselves out of the matrix, and separating ourselves from all of that influence as a step one. And then after that, realizing that we can actually do some of these things ourselves, like Sally's talking about, qigong, meditation, tai chi, yoga, acupuncture, and start investing in ourselves, then we start to develop that intuition, because it's just a muscle. It's just an exercise. These are called spiritual exercises that we do. And they're not just physical exercises, they're spiritual. This is one of the reasons why we have the qigong course in our store, and that I do it. It's because it's a spiritual exercise. It's a longevity practice, qigong. And the course that we promote is 10 minutes twice a day, and you can get it in our store. It's taught by a couple guys we've had on our show, Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar. Amazing. But what it does is it connects you to who you are, and it grounds you. And that's what all these things are, spiritual practices. So one side of the equation is cutting off the influence of others, and cutting off watching the news, cutting off reading the newspaper, not reading the obituaries, not reading those magazines in doctors' offices, not reading all of this junk that's trying to take up space in our mental and spiritual being, not letting that stuff in. That stuff to me is like eating fast food. It's the same thing. Same thing with light as well. When you're exposing yourself to indoor fake light, junk light that's damaging our mitochondria, that's worse than eating fast food. But health people don't think of these things. They don't think of the light that we're exposed to, or the EMF that we're exposed to, or they don't think about all these other aspects of health, the personal development, and the people you're around. They don't think about that. They'll expose themselves to all manner of chemicals and toxins at the same time eating a really pristine diet, and that's not going to do much for you. Like Jason was saying, and we were talking about the angry vegan on the show, is there's much the physical body of the food that we eat is just the tip of the iceberg. And this is the issue. This is the rub with all this stuff, is that do we value ourselves enough to want to do the work that it takes to really fully optimize who we are and what we're doing here? Do we value ourselves enough to do that work? Because that work is hard, man. That work is hard. It's challenging. A lot of people found me, Jedmo T. Awesome to have you here. Same here. Found us through Dr. Bergman. Cool. Yeah, we've been doing this show. This is episode 610. We've been doing our show since 2012, and this is 610 episodes. And Dr. Bergman has been on our show multiple times, but man, we've been doing so many interviews, and I love Dr. Bergman though. He's one of my favorite human beings ever. Love that guy. We did a video with him where he adjusted our newborns. That's on our YouTube channel. That's great to have you here, Jedmo. That's awesome. Maria, that's so great. My appointment with Dr. Bergman is coming up in October. That's great. That's awesome. That's only a month away. But always my message to everybody is that I don't have all the answers. Dr. Bergman doesn't have all the answers. And all the people that we talk about on our show, they're simply giving us little insights. Like there's that verse in the book of Colossians, I think, where it talks about looking through a window and trying to understand God. And it says it's as if mankind is looking through a glass darkly, like the glass is fogged up. And it kind of relates to this in the sense that all of these practitioners we have on our show, they're giving us a little insight, just one thing that might help improve our life. So I want to encourage all of us to not look to any one person as their guru for anything. Spiritual guru, personal development guru, health guru, none of this stuff. They're all people that can help us. And they're all sort of background characters in the story. And we're the stars. We're the stars of our own movie. And all these other people are background people. But with all that said, Maria, that's awesome. I love Dr. Bergman. He's going to be fun to talk to. So tell him I said hello when you see him in October. Sally says we can heal ourselves. I asked my doctor to take a drug he gave me. One of the side effects was heart failure. Oh my gosh. He said that. He said he would not talk about that. Oh my gosh. So check this out. So many of you guys are maybe new to our channel or new to our work. But Kate, my wife, who's my co-host, who is going to be back on the show soon, she just gave birth 2 months ago to our twin baby boys, our first kids. So it's a huge life change. But her body has a 9 centimeter fibroid that's in the wall, embedded in the wall of her uterus, right? So that's it's like a pancake thing, right? It's huge. So she has this thing embedded. And we did a show recently with Dr. Richard Massey, and it was like a counseling kind of a show. Like he was really talking to us about that, and it was really a profound show. I think that's on the homepage of our show, but he talked about the reasons why that fibroid could be there. And it gets into stillborn births and her mom and different things like that. But in any event, the pregnancy with twins and this 9 centimeter fibroid was just unbelievable. It was incredibly difficult for her. Like I've never seen anyone go through as much pain in my life for 9 months as Kate did. I mean, it was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was so bad. I just have to say it was horrible. And so one night it got so bad that we had to go to the emergency room. And you know us, I mean, we're the most natural people. So in my life, I have all these experiences and circumstances of people doing the very things that I'm the biggest proponent for people not to do, having success with that, right? My mom goes and gets chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, bone marrow transplant, all of it. That was 21 years ago. She should be dead. I should be expounding on the positive benefits of chemotherapy, but yet I'm not. But it's weird. I have all these circumstances in my life of people that going through toxic things and coming out on the other side great. So the last place I wanted to go and she wanted to go was to an emergency room, right? So we get there, and after hours on hours and hours of testing and this and that and the other thing, the two nurses are trying to get her to take a drug. It's on our Instagram account if you guys want to look at it, but this kind of reminds me, Sally, of what you were saying. This drug, they were really pushing her to take. And I don't know I think it was like a muscle relaxer to stop the uterus from contraction, because she was having contractions at 6 months because this fibroid was just bearing down on her uterus, and the uterus would move. And so the fibroid, there's pictures of it on our Instagram, the fibroid would literally poke out through the skin, not through the skin, but you would see the skin and you would see a big old bump in her stomach. And the pain was so much that we were in the emergency room, and they wanted her to give her this drug, and they were laying it on thick. They were really trying to get her to take this drug. And she just kept saying, let me talk about it. Can you guys leave the room? And then both nurses left the room. And then so we talked about it. And, she was just said she didn't want to take it. And so she kept saying that. Finally, she was just really stern with them, saying, I'm not going to take this drug, And they were giving her a guilt trip about it. So I go home and I researched this drug after we got back from the emergency room, and I find out it causes stillbirths, it causes miscarriages, it causes mental retardation, it causes all these side effects, and then sometimes death in the mother. And then I read these stories of these women who took this drug and who have all this guilt for, because their child died, or they have some long-term health consequence as a result of taking the drug. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it would have been so easy for us to say, yes, let's take this drug. But we didn't. Sometimes the biggest health breakthroughs come from simply not accepting an offer that's given to you, right? People offer you things all the time. Sometimes it's about not accepting an offer, because we have a choice in everything that's offered to us. Sally says, don't they shrink fibroids eventually? Well, they don't shrink the fibroids. Like there's different ways you can shrink the fibroid. You can obviously have surgery to do it. There's ligation. There's a bunch of different protocols. But we actually talked to Dr. William Wong on our show, WONG, a couple days ago, and we're going to go through his fibroid reduction protocol. And it's funny because 2 days before, or about a year ago or 9 months ago, Kate was 2 days into a cannabis protocol that she was going to do for her fibroid. Or I shouldn't say her fibroid because she doesn't own it. That's the fibroid that's in her body. So she was going to do cannabis. She was 2 days into doing cannabis, and 2 days later she found out she was pregnant. So it was like we spent all this money, got this cannabis, and 2 days later she found out she couldn't take it anymore. So we had to stop at that. But we're going to try Dr. William Wong's protocol. There's also a protocol for fibroids from a lady named Dr. Akila. So her website is docakillah.com. and we've been, made aware of her work, and she has a fibroids protocol as well. So maybe we'll combine Dr. Akila's protocol with Dr. Wong, and maybe the cannabis, and see if we can't shrink this thing naturally, because it's a massive thing. It's causing all kinds of issues for her, and it has been for many, many years. ZZ Captain says, Sally says, congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Man, having kids is twins as well, man. Wow. I was a twin, and my twin didn't make it. He died 4 days before he translated 4 days before I was born. And then Kate had a brother. My twin was a boy, and Kate had a brother that was before her that didn't make it. And so we're thinking that there's a connection there between both her side and our side. ZZ Captain says, feeling good comes from the quality of the life you live. Yeah, that's true. And then where you derive value from as well. So the goal is to feel good, right? And so what do you mean by quality? And what does that mean for each person? So do I feel like I'm living a quality life? That is, for me, quality for me is if I'm meant to be a level 10 on something, if I'm anything less than that, then for me, I don't think that's quality. I want to be whatever I can be. Like he was saying with Gary Vee, Gary Vee gets to be Gary Vee. We all get to be who we are. So the fullest expression of who we are, whatever that is, if you were to put a number on that, 1 through 10, if it's a 4, if it's an 8, whatever that is for you, to be 100% of that for you, I think, is something that I determine in my life to be quality, like something that I lived up to the potential I was supposed to live up to while enjoying my life and having fun and giving back to others. Oh, wow. Maria says for me, it's been 2 years since I've been listening to you and Kate on your show. No way. Wow, that's cool you came back. That's awesome. ZZ Captain says, yes, I agree with you, Justin, and I wrote it down what Nikki said. I hope you do not mind if I share with others, Nikki. Yeah, what do you mean by that? I'm not sure who Nikki is, ZZ Captain. Giedre, awesome name. That's cool. Giedre. Hi, I love your show. I found it recently through Dr. Bergman. Cool. And Ken Rolla. Yeah, you know what? We're going to have Ken on the show again. He's coming on, I think next month or something. I love that guy. We sell his Rest Shield Pyramid, which is one of the things that we have in our bedroom, which I think is allowing our kids to sleep for so long. And we also sell his Vitalizer Plus. And he's been on the show many, many times. Love Ken. Loving all the knowledge from different alternative health practitioners. Yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Because ultimately it's bringing sort of a smorgasbord of everything that people are talking about and then bringing it into your own philosophy and how you view the world. I saw the video with Dr. B and your baby twins. Lovely. That's awesome. Yeah. Dr. Bergman, he's great. I love that guy. Bless you. Sorry for you lost your twin. Yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of feel guilty in a little bit because you don't feel as sad as you probably should. As far as losing my twin, like I don't feel a connection because he had passed away 4 days before. But I have to think if I were to dig deep enough, we obviously had some sacred ancient contract to share a womb for basically 9 months, right? So there's something there that I just haven't explored yet in terms of emotional connection. But thank you, Sally. I appreciate that. Zeno says Gary Busey. Not sure what you meant by that. But Zeno, it's great to have you here. It's cool. I've seen you quite a bit, and I love the fact that you're here today. So pleased to tune in. Wonderful. We'll share on my Facebook. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sally. Appreciate that. Yeah, if you guys want to share the show, that helps us tremendously get the word out. We appreciate that a lot. A lot of people have written in over the years, like saying, I'd love to buy a sauna, or oh, by the way, I want to tell you about our sauna sale too going on. But I'd love to buy a sauna. I can't afford it, or I'd love to buy this or that or the other thing. How can I help support the show? And I always just say, if you want to just share the show, that helps get the word out, because ultimately we're just bringing perspective to people, and hopefully, what I find such great, tremendous hope in is that recent story of the Monsanto story. You guys know about that? A unique perspective that kind of got downloaded to me as I was thinking about that recent court trial by Monsanto was, here's what I find to be the most encouraging thing about that. And a lot of people say, well, is the industry going to change? Is Monsanto going to stop producing glyphosate and all this? Are people going to wake up? And I had a completely different take on it that I haven't heard anyone mention before, and that is the state of our world today in terms of communication and information. So what I thought about that was, I don't know if you guys know, but in that Monsanto case, I think it only took them about 4 hours to determine the guilt of Monsanto and come up with the $298 million that that guy was awarded as a result of getting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from overexposure to glyphosates, right? So it only took, I think, like 4 hours for them to determine that. So what I thought was really fascinating about that I haven't heard anyone talk about, was this, that those people that were on that jury, how many of them do you think had Facebook accounts? How many of them do you think had YouTube or have seen a YouTube video? How many of those people on that 12-man jury do you think have a Twitter account or an Instagram account? How many of them do you think have ever seen a meme or something that someone shared that was an article that talked about Monsanto in a negative light? How many of them watched a documentary about this? So what I'm saying is that what's incredible is that the future president of the United States is going to be someone who will have never have grown up without social media. And as you guys can probably attest, people are waking up in droves around the world. People are waking up. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it, but you go online and you see it. So what's amazing is that people are becoming more open-minded, and people are becoming more open to new concepts and to new ideas. And as a result of that, and the reason why that's happening is because information is being spread. Like this video, there's a ton of other great podcasts out there. I listen to a ton of them. Information is being spread and knowledge is spreading around the world. And as a result of that, people's minds are being open. And so the next time that person is in a jury, he or she's going to find himself with 11 other people who are also exposed to all this information that we're sharing. So the point and the message of all of this stuff isn't that I want you to share our show. It's that I want you to share anything that allows people to be open-minded and think about things in a new way, whether that's, information about history, science, religion, spirituality, health. That's why it's so important, my friends, to share this information. Share information with your friends, because, someone who's very closed-minded, which is probably a lot of people in the world today, if they're exposed to 4 or 5, if they have 150 friends on Facebook and 5 or 6 of them share regularly empowering information like this show or empowering information like lots of other podcasts on a regular basis, they're getting 5 or 6 people sharing stuff. That's going to start to have an impact on them. And then that person is eventually going to look into something. And then that person is going to eventually wake up. And then that person gets called to be on a jury. And then now their whole worldview is changed because of this sort of slow indoctrination of information that people are sharing, and people are starting to look into things. And so this affects all of us. Like, think about if you're ever standing in front of a judge. That judge is will have been exposed to social media and information that people like you and I share. Same with the police officer that pulls you over. So no longer are we living in a world where people are closed off and uneducated about things. So like I always say, in the age of information, ignorance is just a choice. So by sharing information, it really helps us as a culture, as a community, as a living organism that is all one, elevate our consciousness and elevate the social construct of how we live our life. And that all comes from just sharing information. And sometimes you don't think about it like that, right? Like you just share something you don't think about. But man, the more people sharing, the better world this is going to be, because eventually people are going to start looking into things. Zeno says, sorry, I thought I heard Gary B, and I think you were talking about Dr. B. That's right, yeah. Miss Vicky says, the steamy chick does natural modalities that can help women with their issues. Have you heard of her? No. The steamy chick, natural modalities that help women with their issues. Miss Vicky, can you send me an email? Or Vicky, I should just say. Vicky, who this person is? Because if she has a fibroids protocol, we're open to everything, right? ZZ Captain says, how important is it to stay in the YouTube pathway and out of the hospital? And if you're able to keep up with this revolution, I think it's possible. ZZ Captain, I'm not sure exactly what you were meaning by how important is it to stay in the YouTube pathway. I think it's incredibly important to stay out of the hospital. The more, in my opinion, I'm not saying this is good for you, but for me, the more you can stay out of a doctor's office, stay out of a hospital for as many things as possible, the healthier and longer you're going to live. That's my opinion. But, it's just my opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It is the education we need for the individual community of cells we call self that is applicable and now available. Look at you. I like that. The way you worded that. That's awesome. ZZ Captain. It is the education we need. So you're talking about YouTube being the education we need in order for us to sort of elevate humanity. If that's what you're saying, I agree with you a lot. Yes, Dr. Bergman is really cool, gentlemen. Yeah. I love his laugh. Dr. Bergen's laugh is so infectious. There's a lot of people in my life that has really distinct and awesome laughs, and it's just so great to be around them, isn't it? Like you just listen to their laugh and you just feel good, I love Dr. B. By the way, the course Dr. Bergman doing for the Academy this year this month is all about cardiovascular health and heart health, preventing heart attacks, preventing heart disease, all of that. They're currently filming that, so that's going to be in the Academy at the end of September 2018. If you guys want to join the Extreme Health Academy, but yeah. Oh, I wanted to tell you too, guys, about the sauna. We're not really allowed to do this, and we only do this maybe once a year, but Phil allowed us to run a sale on the sauna. So if you guys want to check out the YouTube video we did a couple days ago with Phil Wilson, he is the sort of importer of the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. That's the sauna that I've been using for the last 6 years, since before we started the show. Amazing device. But anyway, it is on sale now for $150 off, which is crazy. And it doesn't cost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 like the wooden ones. It's very, very affordable. And that runs till Sunday, the 23rd of September at 11:59 p.m. So I want to thank Phil Wilson for allowing us to do that. So if you want access to the sauna that we're selling or that we promote on the show, it is just send me an email, because we can't put it in print. Can't put it in print. I've been fasting. It's time for me to go eat. I can't put it in print until that price. So email me, Justin, JUSTIN @extremehealthradio.com, and I will I'll hook you up with a $150 discount. We take all of our payments through PayPal. We don't have like a store, so we do all our payments through PayPal. So I'll send you a link to send the sauna for $150 off. That's available till Sunday. Just want to let you guys know about that. Maria says the Jinx. Invite the Jing Slingers too. Love them. I love to hear you chewing their chewing their food. Do I chew their food? Or did you watch a video? We had them on our show, I think twice, the Jing Slingers. They're so much fun. I love them. I think they recently moved to the East Coast. Sally says, yes, people are waking up big time. There's massive paradigm shift. I write about this in my book as well, and I agree with you. I agree. Sally, there's a lot of people that their minds are being opened, and they don't really know about it, because this internal work that we're talking about here is a slow process. And it happens gradually over time, like the ocean hitting the side of a cliff. And over time, the shape of the cliff gets changed, right? And so this change happens over time as we're exposed to more information. And until someone's paradigm has completely changed, they don't want to agree with it, because it would cause issues in their personal life. So this kind of stuff is happening internally with people, and they're not talking about it. They're not even sharing it with friends, because their friends may make fun of them or something like that. So what they're doing is they're keeping it to themselves. But it does affect them when they make decisions out in the world, out in the public. If they're ever on a jury, if they're ever in a decision where, or in a situation where they have to make an important decision, these things are affecting people, and people are changing internally. Look at the average person in 1850 or 1950, for that matter, and what their worldview was like compared to today. People are changing big time, which is amazing to be. And I'm just honored and humbled to be a part of this. Vicky says some people don't even bother, which is sad. Social media does have its good points. That's true. And that's why it's really important to harness technology and social media to have it work for you, not against you. And so the acceptance of everything technological is in my opinion, what's damaging the health of today's culture. Just without even thinking about how this piece of technology is going to affect us, we say yes to it. If it's a faster phone, if it's a faster this or that, if it's the ability for me to do virtual reality, I say yes to everything. I don't personally, but people do. And so this blind acceptance without recognizing how this piece of technology, either physical or a social media account, how it's going to affect the direction that my life is going and affect the core essence of who I am, without asking that question first, the blind acceptance of all these things is what's causing us harm, I think, in our culture. I agree. Dr. Christine Northrup agrees with women's health. Yeah, have we had her on our show, Dr. Christine Northrup? We should add her on. I've known about her work for years. Miss Vicky says, where do I find you? You can send me an email, justin@extremehealthradio.com. That would be cool. ZZ Captain says, yes, Sally, we are the fortunate ones. The Americans before us did not have this choice. I hope it never ends. How long do you fast for? And I have been doing the same and feeling amazing with it, Sally says. Yeah, Sally, so I fast for a few years ago. It's like, you watch documentaries. I watched a documentary while sitting in my sauna, and I watched the whole documentary about the benefits of fasting, and I've been fasting ever since. I'm not a good faster. I have a slight build. Like, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 170 pounds. I'm not very robust. I don't have a Vata body type. So it's challenging for me to fast. And so I was doing a Sunday fast, and I couldn't even get through a Sunday fast one day without eating. It was really hard. So what I found out about after that was intermittent fasting. And so I do it now every day. I usually finish dinner around 6 p.m. and then I don't eat anything again until about midday, like 12 o'clock the next day. So that gives me about 16 to 18 hours. Like today will be a little bit more because it's 1:20 here on the West Coast. So, that's more than 18 hours of not having any food in my body. And fasting is one of the best things you could do for you. Sometimes the best and most helpful thing to improve your health is not what you're doing, but it's doing what you're not doing. And that is not eating. Something as simple as not eating food is going to be the most beneficial thing for you. So people are selling superfoods. Like we have the Symbiotica. I love that. But sometimes the best thing is to just not eat anything. Maybe do a supplement. Like if you're doing a lot of supplements, maybe do supplements on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and take a break on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday or something. So play around with your supplements. Play around with your food and see how long you can go without eating. In a safe way, of course. Vicky says, I'm getting that email. Awesome. Yeah, Maria, if you want to email me, if you guys want to email me about anything, I do my best to get back to all my emails, and you can email me. I'll just put it here, justin@extremehealthradio.com, and you can, that's the email to send me if you guys want to get the discount price on the sauna. Man, I'm having such a good time with you guys. Man, it's just so, I feel like I'm in a room with you guys and just chit-chatting. It's just fun, just a lot of fun. I thought that what Nikki wrote, may we take the heart and the beauty. Oh, it needs to be on the Student Success Center at my college. What did Nikki write again? Was that what I wrote that I thought was so eloquently written a while ago? Was that in this chat room, ZZ Captain? Oh, let me see here. Okay, for those that are listening on the podcast, you're probably wondering what I'm doing. I'm scrolling through our YouTube comments here to try to find that quote that Nikki said earlier. And I think that Nikki was like a yoga teacher or something like that. All right, guys. Well, we are going to be signing off here because I do need to go home and eat. Getting a little bit hungry now. I'm going to have some fruit. Considering not doing fruit during the winter months, though, like Dr. Stephen Gundry said on our show a couple weeks ago, he doesn't do any fruit during the winter because it's not local, it's not natural. Oh, Nikki wrote back, no, dear, I just listened to the wind and it is free. Nikki, it seems like if I were to listen to you talk, you would be like, you ever listen to Alan Watts? Where he's got that poetic way of speaking. You sound like someone I could listen to, like someone from Star Wars. Like you got all these really awesome things to say. That's awesome. I just listened to The Wind and it is free. Sally says, I've been looking at the medical medium books. Not sure with fruits, but helped me so much over the summer. Yeah, Sally, we had him on our show a while back. What is his name? Anthony William, I think. Yeah, he was on our show, gosh, a couple years ago. Gosh, we've talked to so many people. But yeah, interesting guy. Interesting guy, most definitely. Had a lot of people write in and ask my opinion about that. Maybe I'll share that on next week. But let me go over next week, really, our shows. On Monday, we're going to be doing a whole show on fasting. So that's going to be interesting. Let's see. That's going to be Nadia. I got to learn how to say her name correctly. Pateguana. Patagona. And we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting. So that's going to be really good. And then if you guys know of anybody that has Lyme disease, like I was saying during the show, the singer-songwriter Avril Lavigne, I feel like just sending her a link to Dr. Darren Ingalls, because we'll be talking to her or talking to him on Wednesday next week about Lyme disease. So that's going to be interesting. And Friday, we're going to be talking with Dr. William Pollack all about EMFs. Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. So all of this stuff is available on our homepage, Extreme Health Radio. So I really want to thank you guys for sharing the show, for subscribing to our YouTube channel, for shopping through our Amazon link. You can do that on the front page of our website, extremehealthradio.com. For all of you guys that are patrons, you guys donate a couple dollars a month, and that's incredibly helpful. I just can't tell you, without your support, we wouldn't be able to do this show. So I really thank you guys for that. It's a game changer. So we appreciate that so much. And then obviously the products that are in our store are obviously vetted by us, and we use them and promote them. And so thanks for going to our store and shopping through our store. And then also many of you guys are also members of the Extreme Health Academy, and that is really awesome place. So also in our store, I wanted to tell you guys that if you purchase any of the items in our store, we'll give you a coupon code for 30 days free for the Academy. So you can join that and get acclimated to that as well, and join the community there. So it's just a little bonus for shopping through our store. So we appreciate that. Sally, yes, rice machines are amazing. We have one, and we're in the process of adding that to our store as well. We work with Dr. Kevin Connors, who we've been on the show a couple times, and been using his rice machine for, about a year and a half now. I do that while I lay on my IMRS mat. So it's kind of fun to combine technologies together. So, all right, guys, this has been a hell of a long show, 2.5 hours. My goodness. I hope you guys are doing great. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you guys again on Monday, and we can chit chat and talk about everything that's going on in your lives. And here's what I want to do. I think maybe we'll do like a free-for-all Friday show. Maybe I'll do it like on a Tuesday of next week or Thursday. But we'll all get together as a group and help each other with our health questions, because all of us have health issues, right? So what if, there's a bunch of people in the chat room and one or two people have a health concern, or maybe they have a health condition they want to overcome, and then they ask a question and I can give my insights, and then you guys in the chat room can give your insights as well, and we can build sort of a repository of helping everyone with their health, questions and challenges. I think that might be kind of fun. So anyway, thank you guys. We love you. Thanks for sharing our show. Thanks for subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you for listening and for being in the world and choosing to expand your consciousness and to grow. That's most important. So we love you all very, very much. And if you have any questions about the sauna, about the Academy, any of that good stuff, I'm always here. So you can send me an email, justin@extremehealthradio.com, and I'd love to help you out in any way I possibly can. So have a great Friday. I'm going to go grab some food. You can probably follow what I'm going to do on Instagram. I'll be posting on there. But have a great day, and we'll talk to you guys very, very soon on Monday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse